It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president, and you are after it. You're advancing this economy. You're raising your children. You're running your small business. We are so grateful for what you're doing for the community. Thank you for taking time to tune in to the Jeff and Bill Show, where your voice is heard loud and clear. That means this is a talk show. We want to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Those text messages come right into the studio here. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. Lauren Boebert being brought up on some censorship charges, or there's an attempt by Democrats to censor her from the floor of the House of Representatives for some remarks she made on an interview. We'll tell you about that. The Department of Education being cut in half. Do you support what Donald Trump's doing with the Department of Education? 8 o'clock hour, Darcy Shanning's going to be joining us. She's making the rounds as that vote for Colorado GOP chairman coming up here very, very soon. She's going to join us live in studio. She was on Kyle Clark recently. I watched 25 minutes of that interview. Impressive. I think she gave Kyle Clark just as good as he gives. We'll ask her about the lawsuits as well against Britta Horn. What's that all about? You're not going to want to miss that conversation. And then Donald Trump showcasing Teslas at the White House yesterday, even purchasing one. We'll get your thoughts on that activity. And then a blow-up over how you name somebody that's transgender. Do you abide by their preferred gender pronouns, or do you see it as being forced to have to abide by their thinking? You don't agree with it. We'll play some audio from a dust-up that happened in Congress yesterday over this. So lots of news to cover. Let's start first with Blake Olson news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. Good morning. Wednesday, 40 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a skier has died after a crash at Keystone. The Summit County Sheriff's Office says that the man was skiing on the Haywood Trail on Tuesday afternoon when he lost control and struck a light pole. He was pronounced dead after he was taken to Keystone Medical Center. There's no evidence of foul play or intoxication, and the man was wearing a helmet at the time of the crash. At least 2 people are in custody after an armed carjacking in Adams County. Gunfire was reported in the 7400 block of Broadway, and investigators found a bullet hole in the door of the Mapleton Arts Center. 2 juveniles ran from police after crashing the stolen vehicle, but were arrested a short time later. The sheriff's office says several other people were taken into custody for unrelated warrants during the investigation.
Now, hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball's now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
That's Marco Rubio. Ukraine says it'll agree to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia if Moscow accepts the tentative deal. Comes after a day of negotiations between Ukraine and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Zelensky said his country sees the deal as a positive step, But now it's up to the U.S. to convince the Russians. Retired Colonel Douglas McGregor on with Tucker last night on X. Fascinating, the whole interview. He says Mexico and the cartels should be our greatest concern right now.
There's no interest in this country in any of that crap. But people in this country are damn well interested in what's happening on the Mexican border, and I just spent 3 days down there. And they're damn well interested in what's happening in Mexico, because they know that that is a cesspool of barbarism, savagery, criminality. And that's our existential threat. Not China, not Russia, not Iran, not anywhere. We can manage those things. President Trump can manage those things. This thing down on the Mexican border is really at a boiling point. We need to understand.
And DJT is telling business leaders that his tariffs are having a tremendously positive impact on the economy.
The biggest win is not the tariff. That's a big win. That's a lot of money. But the biggest win is if they move into our country and produce jobs. That's a bigger win than the tariffs themselves. But the tariffs are going to be throwing off a lot of money to this country.
DJT spoke Tuesday at the quarterly meeting of his business roundtable, which includes the heads of Apple, Walmart, GM, and JP Morgan Chase. In his remarks, Trump claimed his recent tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and China will have, and they are having, a positive impact. The remarks come as stock values continue to fall. The Dow, Jones Industrial Average lost as much as 700 points on Tuesday before ending the trading day down 478 points. Major cuts are reported that the Department of Education staff received an email Tuesday notifying them that they had to vacate the department's headquarters by 6 o'clock tonight. Over 1,300 staffers received notifications that they are being fired. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Hey, UNC, a Big Sky tournament win again and in the championship game tonight. CU takes on West Virginia today in the Big 12 tournament, trying to pull off some upsets. CSU tomorrow night. Minnesota, the T-Wolves, and the Nuggets tonight. 38 in Parker, 36 in Boulder, 40 in Denver. The little morning meeting that we call the Jeff and Bill Show continues.
I've been in the meetings. They are. I need to get in the. I need to get in the field. You need to come to the meetings. I gotta get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, yeah, they don't give us. If y'all don't give us what we want, like.
Yeah, let's get in the meeting. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring-like weather continues here for another couple of days. Then as we get into Friday and the weekend, we'll have a bit of a change-up. Temperatures will be well into the 60s today and well into the 60s tomorrow. Lows tonight and lows tomorrow night in the 30s. We will see thickening and increasing clouds tomorrow night. Do be ready for a change. Friday and Saturday will be quite a bit colder. Highs will just be in the 40s. While we don't expect anything heavy, some rain and snow showers Friday into early Saturday possible. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Fox News reporting that Representative Chrissy Houlihan, I think is how you pronounce that, is pushing to censure Representative Lauren Boebert over a TV interview in which the Republican Congresswoman criticized Representative Al Green, Democrat of Texas. Green notably heckled President Donald Trump multiple times during his first address of his second term to Congress last week until House Speaker Mike Johnson, representative from Louisiana, Speaker of the House, ordered the Sergeant-at-Arms to escort Green from the chamber. Houlihan submitted a resolution Monday calling to censure Boebert, quote, for her recent disparaging and derogatory comments, unquote, about Green. During a March 7th interview with Real America's Voice News, Boebert said Al Green was given multiple opportunities to stand down, to sit down, to behave, to show decorum. For him to go and shake his pimp cane at President Trump was absolutely abhorrent, Boebert said. The resolution said those words uttered by Boebert, quote, are disparaging, derogatory, and racist towards another colleague and are a breach of proper conduct and decorum of the House of Representatives. It calls for Boebert to be censured forthwith, present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Boebert be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. In a statement, Houlihan said, after my discussion on the House floor last week, when Speaker Johnson told me he'd have to censure half the members if he actually enforced the rules of Congress, I decided to help. And tonight introduced a resolution to censure Representative Boebert for her racist and derogatory statements about Representative Al Green. But it continues. Letters coming into the Denver Post saying that Lauren Boebert's pimp cane comment about Representative Green was racist. She should resign. Barry Roseman of Denver writing to the Denver Post, Boebert is a racist. She's an embarrassment to her district and to all Coloradans. She should resign her seat in Congress immediately. Now, I found the comment quite entertaining. The pimp cane, my mind did not go to the idea that this comment was racist at all towards black people or that black men are pimps because they carry a cane. My mind went to Kramer from Seinfeld, walking down the street dressed as he was as a pimp with his pimp cane. And in my mind, it's the Democrats that are equivocating. Pimp cane with black men, they're the ones being racist. Here, I do not see it as a racist comment. I actually saw it as quite funny. Bill, do you see Lauren Boebert's comment as a racist comment?
Well, I don't see it as a racist comment, but she was making the connection in my mind because of his race. I would guess that if it was a white man, if it was Lindsey Graham, if it was, anybody else out there that was walking with a cane, I doubt that would be the allegation. It was done because of that. And again, but I don't think I'm not taking it as a racist insult. I take it as a juvenile insult, and I'm okay with juvenile insults. I partake in them myself. So I'm okay with it. I think the idea of censure because of it goes too far. And part of the reason that I disagree with the idea of censure is this is behavior outside of when the body was in session. She made this interview. She made the statement. She made the statement on our show too. She made the statement that morning on our show when she did the 6 o'clock interview after she said the statement.
Did she?
Yes, she did. In fact, I thought at first when it said, because the reference, I thought like, oh, they mentioned our show and they go to this damn TV show. I was pissed. That's what I was mad about. I was mad about the fact that we didn't get credit that at 6 o'clock in the morning she did that. I didn't realize
she did that.
Yeah,
she made that my reference. Mind doesn't turn on until 7:30.
Oh, I understand that one. So So I was mad we didn't get credit. That's where I'm pissed. But again, people can do lots of dumb things when they are outside of session. That's fine. For me, censure is based on activities that are not becoming the body. That when you are there inside and doing the work, you want to go out and act a fool outside, fine. Okay. I think using the idea of censure is silly. The other part is, okay, let's say that everybody in Congress agreed and censured her. And? What happens? Nothing happens. There isn't a single consequence because of that. Who cares? That the idea of censoring this person is as irrelevant as the stupid resolutions that legislative bodies run all the time. They don't have any enforcement power. They're just, we like this, and we want to say we support this. Shut up. Go and pass stuff. Get things done. Stop talking to me about your feelings. Stop talking to me about what you like. That's not why we elected you there to be in the body for Congress. Outside of that body, yes, talk to me about what you like, what you care about, what you support. Absolutely, that is fair. But not inside the legislative well. That's the part that makes me mad. This is her behavior outside of it. That's fine.
So Representative Lauren Boebert responded to this by pointing out, A, who is Houlihan? And B, can I wear a purple mink coat into the well? And then AI went and did its job and has Lauren Boebert wearing a purple mink coat holding a pumpkin. Nice. Standing in her official congressional portrait.
It's such a weird thing for me because, it's a long story as to why and whatever else. But in the past 10 days or so, I've been like, if I had to get a cane, what would I get? And there's some reasons behind it that I don't want to share with everybody else. As far as yes, it's movement, everything else. But I saw some other videos and some things of people talking about it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. And part of it is that this person is an older kung fu master and has to get around with a cane, and was doing a series of videos about how this is one of the most understated self-defense weapons ever. And so he showed a whole bunch of techniques, and I'm like, oh, when I get older, cane, beat kids with canes.
Well, you can first of all hide knives in it if you need to.
There's no knives or anything else. I mean, this was the idea of using it as a short staff. And he showed the idea of when someone comes up to attack you, even with a knife, how you are able to parry and then things that you're able to do to him. And then he talked about here, if you're going to use this thing as self-defense, this is what you're looking for. And I'm like, oh, it's
Bill,
it's
what's
years.
going to happen with this? You're talking about a cane as self-defense. Democrats are going to go ban canes.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Only the ones that have extended magazines.
The gas-powered canes.
Just the extended magazines. And so that's canes. And the thing was, I was just fascinated. And this guy's like, he's pushing in his mid-80s. And I'm like, this is really interesting. The dude has multiple black belt, degrees. And it was just cool to watch what he was doing. And he was just doing some little sparring, walking through and saying, here's how you can protect yourself. And it doesn't take a lot of force, doesn't take a lot of strength, but here's the leverage points. And I'm like, I'm getting me a cane when I get older. So
this is
weird
why pimps have canes.
Yeah, this comes
right?
up in part of it, yeah.
To keep their ladies in check.
Yeah. Oh, boy, do I have a story about that. Yeah. Boy, do I ever.
And also defend themselves on the street.
Yeah.
But that's why they have canes. I don't think it's because all pimps have
great fashion
issues.
sense. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's part of it, of course. Yeah. And it's all, to keep the ladies in line, defending yourself, stuff like that. Yeah. And ever had interactions? Ever had interactions with pimps? Ever? Because I lived at a place where across the street, about every 10 days, the pimp would round up his hose and shake him down. And that was an interesting conversation that goes on at 2:30 in the morning. So-and-so, where's my money? Where's my MF money? Don't make me put you in the trunk again. I'm telling you, you are breaking me up. And I'm like, wow. And he had him lined up against the wall. And that was across the street of where I was living at the time. That would happen. Yes. Yeah. There also was a payphone on the wall where it was interesting. You'd only see the payphone used when guys would walk up to it. They would dial a number. And then about 10 minutes later, a young kid on a 10-speed would ride by and they'd do the deal. They were calling the drug dealer. And so you'd watch it all the time. They're calling the drug dealer and the kid would show up in the 10-speed and they'd make the exchange and he'd go off.
So
all the time.
That phone was known as that
was the drug phone.
Essentially, right?
That was the drug phone.
You picked up that phone, and your drug of choice would show
And it
up.
was right next to that phone is where the pimp would shake down the ladies. And it was about every 10 days. And I think he was doing it because he would move locations because he didn't want to go to the same location because he'd get noise complaints, and then the police would show up because they could predict it. So it wasn't exactly every 10 days, but that was about the cycle because he'd wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to be to work at 4. So I knew when I was woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew exactly when I got woken up at 2:30. Yes.
I've seen there's videos out there of people with drones that will kind of hover above the places where prostitutes and pimps will hang out.
Yep, and watch for them.
And
have that.
And keep a little bit of pressure on them to stay away, but they can't do anything. Right?
Yeah, because they don't
hovering above.
Yeah, they don't want to be identified. They don't want to have you see what they're doing. So that's not it's not something that you're going to post on your Facebook page. So that kind of a thing. But it's. Again, this is silly. I mean, you can disagree with it, and you can go out and do an interview and say she shouldn't have said this. Whatever your opinion is, that's fine. But the idea of censure is just stupid. And the reason that I disagree with it more times than not is because there's no teeth to it. Nothing happens. She doesn't have to stay late after class. She doesn't have to deliver an essay the next morning about why she's sorry. It doesn't matter. She's not doing the Bart Simpson thing on the chalkboard, writing, "I will not say pimp cane 100 times in a row." Who cares? It's a waste of time. It really is. Go out there and do all the interviews, get all the traction you need there, but stop it, especially when it didn't happen inside the legislative body or the session. Stop it.
Jason in Denver texted in, not sure what the liberals are talking about. In the 80s movie Risky Business, Guido the killer pimp was white.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about Guido.
I've never seen that movie.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's a very good one.
Mike texted, what happened to free speech?
Exactly. And the thing for me is, because it happened outside the legislative body in session, you can censure them for lack of decorum and such inside of the body when you're in session. That seems reasonable. But saying stuff outside, I don't care. They all say really, on both sides, they all say really, really stupid things when they are outside of session. Have you ever listened to a Chuck Schumer press conference? That's stupid. I mean, that is just a laundry list of stupidity. It's just ridiculous.
Iggy texted in, when canes are outlawed, only outlaws will have canes.
That's why I will get one. Again, I'm telling you, this old Asian kung fu master, the stuff that he thought about, I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. He's talking about the right length, the right diameter, the curvature, what's on the top. He's like, you take all this into account. I'm like, I had never thought of that. Thank you, wise man.
Dude, Jason with the comment of the morning.
Yeah.
Listen to this one. Most members might as well be prostitutes in the way they sell influence.
That's a good point. I like that.
Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson are pimps in charge of all their members who are complete hoes.
That's really good. that is much more correct than you actually want to. No,
Jason.
Yeah, because they show up, but they show up with a sugar daddy and, hey, can you give me a check? I passed this law. Come on, give me a check. Look what I did for oil and gas. Look what I did for the EVs. Come on. You see me? I'm pushing the Green New Deal. Just a little. I just need a fix. I'm a little itchy today. Come on, just a little bit.
A cane, Mike, a cane is the best weapon next to a bar of soap and a sock.
Oh, that is too. That's brutal. Yeah. Yes. The code red. That's,
Terry in Texas. Geez, Bill, the idea has been around for a few hundred years. There are several books on it, starting in the 1800s from Europe and America. Cane fighting is a time-honored tradition.
Yeah, the thing is, I've been aware of it and I'd seen it before, but not like this. And again, it was just I hadn't explored it at all. But wow, it was so cool. And again, no blades, nothing like that. It was just the cane and what he was doing. I'm like, that's incredible. I was really excited.
James texted in, good morning, gentlemen. Dave Chappelle's a few bits on a pimp and cane. Same with the Fox comedy In Living Color. It was a running bit.
Yeah, it was. I forgot that In Living Color. That's right.
Young Frankenstein, did he have a cane?
Oh, Young Frankenstein. I don't remember.
Iggy saying that he did. So
he could have, yeah.
Look, we are the top talk radio show in Lauren Boebert's district.
We need canes.
Here's my question to you. People are writing into the Denver Post saying Boebert's pimp cane comment by Representative Green was racist. she should resign. Do you believe she should resign? Do you agree with the Democrats that she should be censured on the floor of the House and made to apologize? Reminder, she said this about Al Green, for him to go and shake his pimp cane at President Trump was absolutely abhorrent. Are you offended? Do you believe she should resign? I'd love to hear from the actual people of her district. My guess is that the people writing in, Barry Roseman of Denver, not in her district, but I'm going to give you the floor. Did what Representative Lauren Boebert say amount to racism in your mind? Should she resign? Should she be censured? Or is it, from my perspective, quite funny and entertaining, a good quip that I thought was perfectly appropriate? And it's the Democrats that are the ones equating black men with pimps by claiming that this comment was racist. Because in my mind, it went to Kramer. It went to, him walking down the street. It was quite funny in my mind. All right. We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Text messages are great this morning. We love you all. I want to talk to you first about my friend Mitch Floria and the Art of Granite. Let me tell you why you need to call him to put together the perfect kitchen or bathroom remodel for you. Quality craftsmanship. Mitch is such an expert and craftsman that he can turn granite, quartz, marble, and other materials into a true work of art right in your home. Superior service. From single residential installations to large-scale projects, Mitch and his team's attention to detail is unmatched. They will listen to you and get you what you need. Great value. Mitch provides granite from his own warehouse in Denver West at wholesale prices with no markup, so you can get the most for your budget. Mention KNUS and receive a bathroom countertop free when you purchase your fantastic new kitchen countertop. You can also get a kitchen or bathroom sink free when you purchase any countertop package. Schedule a consultation with Mitch and visit his beautiful showroom in Denver West, or call Mitch. Here's the phone number. 303-386-5919. That's 303-386-5919. Or you can visit his website at theartofgranite.com to start dreaming about your new countertops. That's theartofgranite.com. Iggy reminding us that people fighting with canes in Congress isn't unheard of. We got to go look that up. When was the last cane battle in Congress?
I think they should encourage that. I think that's how they should, settle some, votes on closure or the idea of ending the filibuster. Challenge someone to a cane duel. I mean, just do it that way. We don't have to get serious as far as you could even make it, like the Nerf end things. I'm always going back to the American Gladiators. Give them those big giant Q-tips. Let's do that. I mean, how often would you tune in to a congressional hearing if the person says, and I challenge you to a battle, and two big platforms would rise from the well, and they'd get on the platforms and put on helmets and have to whack each other with giant Q-tips? Now, there we have something worth watching.
Here's the caning of Charles Sumner from Congress. The caning of Charles Sumner, or the Brooks-Sumner affair, occurred on Thursday, May 22nd, 1856, in the United States Senate chamber when Representative Preston Brooks, a pro-slavery Democrat from South Carolina, used a walking cane to attack Senator Charles Sumner, an abolitionist Republican from Massachusetts. The attack was in retaliation for an invective-laden speech given by Sumner 2 days earlier in which he fiercely criticized slaveholders, including pro-slavery South Carolina Senator Andrew Butler, a relative of Brooks. The beating nearly killed Sumner and contributed significantly to the country's polarization over the issue of slavery. It's been considered symbolic of the breakdown of reasoned discourse and willingness to resort to violence that eventually led to the Civil War. Although Sumner was unable to return to the Senate until December of 1859, it's like 3 years later, the Massachusetts legislature refused to replace him, leaving his empty desk in the Senate as a public reminder of the attack. Wow. So they have gotten into it. Iggy, thanks for pointing that out. So, do you believe Lauren Boebert and that her comments were racist and that she should resign, as the Denver Post says? Or is this a big nothing burger and you find the comment quite entertaining? Phone lines open, text lines open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Not a lot of comments about people thinking that Lauren Boebert needs to resign. I'm sorry, Denver Post. It's not going to happen. And definitely not over this issue. It was a funny quip about Al Green, not a racist statement. You're the ones making it racist. All right. Bill, this is something you and I may find some agreement on, although I'm not sure it needs to be banned. Bill would prohibit officers from asking drivers why they pulled them over. Drivers in Colorado who've been involved in a traffic stop may have been asked that question. Do you know why I'm pulling you over? A bill has been introduced in the Colorado legislature that would prohibit officers from asking that and instead tell the driver why they are conducting the traffic stop. One of the reasons for the bill is officer safety. Skylar McKinney, Regional Director of Public Affairs for the American Automobile Association, said that simply limiting time during the stop could make all the difference. Bill, I've never liked that question.
Yeah. Why not? I'm just curious.
Because it feels like an underhanded effort to get somebody to admit to a crime that they may not have even known they were committing.
Yeah.
Right? Or tack on something, right? Oh, is it because I failed to come to a complete stop at the stop sign? Well, I didn't know you did that, so let's add that to the ticket here, little Johnny. So I've never been a fan of that question. I'm not sure we need to ban it. I'm like, it's just another law. But I don't know. Not a fan of it. What do you think?
I don't think we need this as a law. That seems stupid. But what I would do is I would encourage everybody to just casually protest against it because now, knock on wood, it's been a while since I've been pulled over. Oh boy, do I have stories there.
Guess what's going to happen today on the way home,
As soon as I
Bill?
talked about it, I'm like, I'm going to get pulled over. And normally when the police officer comes up and asks me that question, if they do, I got about 2.5 seconds in my brain that kind of runs the idea of, well, want to get arrested? How far are we going to push this thing? Because just the way that I'm wired, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that listens to the show that sometimes I can run off at the mouth. And many times, I mean, these are answers that I have given to officers that come over and they're like, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, you wanted an autograph? Again, I'm like a teenager, The thing is, you wanted to share cookies and donuts? The donuts thing did not go over well. That I got a frowny face for that one. I also, the idea of one of my favorite ones is, well, if you don't know, I have no idea why both of us are sitting here. None of those go over very well. But the issue being that I prefer to point out the absurdity in the question.
Yeah.
I understand that it gets them sometimes into a bad mood, but it's an absurd question. You pulled me over with a motive. Why in the hell are you asking me about it? Just tell me about it. But
Yes,
if you're going
I
to
know.
ask the question, I'm going to respond. And I'm going to make this thing either awkward or ridiculous or maybe increase the number of violations, and I can't help myself. But if you're going to ask me that question, oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I am going to respond. I'm never going to say, oh, because of this? No, we're going to play a game.
So we've all had those moments
Yeah.
where we've done something and our parents give us a look as if they might snatch the soul out of our bodies, okay? This one happened because I was a young kid, like 10 or something like that, 11, and we had just watched Wayne's World, I think was the movie. And the movie, when they get pulled over and they start joking about smelling bacon, that type of thing. The cops walking up. So my mom's driving in Texas. She owned radio stations. We kids are in the back of the car, and she got pulled over. And my brothers and I are going, do you smell that? You smell that? It smells like bacon. And my mom turns around, and the daggers
Oh, yeah.
and the soul snatching that was coming out of her eyes towards us, and we were all just mimicking Wayne's World, right? We didn't know all that stuff, but she was not happy on that one. I will never forget that. That will go down for the rest of my life. The look that came from my mom when we got pulled over that time.
Oh yeah,
but
I have never done the bacon response when they ask me that question. No, I at least have that much self-control. The very little self-control I have, and the very sometimes little respect I have for authority. Yes. I at least know that one is that one's going to lead to me being tased. So I'm okay. Yeah, I skipped that one.
So this new bill introduced would prevent it. Bill, I think you and I are probably on the same page on this one. We don't like the question. I mean, even Eric Manning, Bill, texted in saying it's a trap question. It is a trap question. Well, do we have? I don't have.
Yes. You don't have it up? Oh, yeah. We got to talk to Pete in Colorado Springs, because he has asked this question. Because he puts on the uniform on a daily basis. Yes.
I am so glad we got this call.
I am
Pete,
too.
Colorado
I'm so
Springs.
excited about this
Good
one.
morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Hey, good morning, guys. I've been a cop for over almost 30 years now.
Wow.
Let me just give you a little bit of perspective. When I first came on my career, we had a lot of discretion as officers. We were able to actually critically think out here a lot more, take humanity into consideration, that kind of stuff. Throughout my career, state laws, policies, procedures, it's really limited our discretion to the point where there's points in time where I have to write a ticket, whether it's a policy, a state law, and that kind of stuff. My take on it as a police officer is, when I pull someone over, it should be an education experience. I should ask them why they're being pulled over, and I should get a reason for it. And then I should react to that. A single mother that's driving 7 or 8 miles an hour above the speed limit to go pick up her kid at the end of a day, long day at work, is different than some 22-year-old going 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. I asked that question to find out exactly if they understand why I'm pulling them over, and try to get a legitimate reason. We all break laws, traffic laws out here on a daily basis. My perspective on this is allow the officers to keep a little bit of the humanity. I'm an officer out here that very rarely writes a ticket, actually will put pen to paper. Again, I use it as sometimes you get a butt chewing rather than a ticket and a trip to court. So look at the big perspective on this, and allow officers to keep their discretion and use good judgment and reason and critical thinking out here instead of legislating everything to the hilt.
Now, I would like to ask you a question here, and then I'm going to try to cover it. This is definitely not Officer Pete that is on the air here, because this is a public service announcement for the listeners of the Jeff and Bill Show. What do we say to you to have you not write us a ticket? I'm just saying. What answer can we possibly give? That we're like, it's a public service announcement.
Okay, I think it's up to the individual officer a lot of times, unless again we start legislating and we have. Different departments have different policies on how you're going to write tickets, when you're going to write tickets. And my perspective is give the officer the ability to choose. There are some legitimate reasons why people speed. There are some legitimate reasons why people roll through a stop sign and don't come up to a complete stop. And if you can come up with a legitimate reason, I just don't think that we should be hammering every single driver out here for every single offense. But unless we're able to ask the question of, hey, do you realize why I stopped you? Yes, officer, I kind of rolled through that stop sign. Well, can you tell me why? Or I rolled through that stop sign because, you know what, officer, I got to go pick my kid up from daycare and I'm 20 minutes late. To me, that's a really legitimate reason. It doesn't excuse it, but I'm more apt to give a break on that and say, you know what, ma'am, slow it down. Please be cognizant of our traffic violations and have a nice day.
Pete,
I like that. I think your own decision making and your own judgment of the situation means a lot.
If we start taking decision making totally away from officers, you might as well hire robots to come out here and do it. You're taking the humanity out of the equation, and that to me is horrible. leave the humanity out here. People do stupid things in the spur of the moment for reasons that are unknown. That doesn't mean that every single time you do that. I'm a big fan of street breaks. I'm a big fan of listening to people and reacting to why they're doing something. Now, there's people out here that, you know what, are going to say, you know what, I have the right to drive 10, 15 miles an hour over a school zone and screw it. Well, then see you in court. But you got to look at the individual act and the individual reasoning. And if people can show some contrition and say, you know what, I'm sorry for it, that goes a long way in my book.
Pete, I want to thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for calling in today, but more importantly, thank you for keeping our community safe out there.
Thank you so much. You're wired in a way that I'm not able to. I cannot put on that uniform and defend our, the people the way that you do. Also, I got a question for you, Pete, just quickly. Would free donut help? I'm just saying, if I kept a box of donuts in the car and you came over, would free donut help at all, or is that just a no-no? I'm tongue in cheek.
I would say with the older officers, now it's, some of these younger officers are all about lattes and bagels. So
crap. Damn, I was going to spring for the sprinkles, too, man. I was going to do sprinkles and get the fruit filling and everything.
We got the best listeners. Pete, you're amazing, much, brother. We got to get to a break here. We'll continue. Bill, we'll get to you a little bit later. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll get to the calls. We're going to get to Bill in just a second. So let's do what the people expect at this moment, and that's You Choose the News.
Yes, it's that moment in the morning when we take a little bit of liberty because those in charge are not awake this early, so we are going to waste valuable airtime playing America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. You know how this works. Scour the interwebs for moments this morning to find really dumb stories, which is surprisingly easy, and then give them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show because nobody that has any control over the station wakes up for another 8 minutes. So we got a little bit of a window here that we are going to take full advantage of, just like when we were teenagers. Alrighty. Now, Blake Olson is joining us from the newsroom, and Jeff Hunt is in the studio. So, this is a secret, listeners. Don't share it or we're going to get in trouble. Alrighty. Here are the headlines this morning for your purview, gentlemen. Headline number 1. Imposter syndrome. Headline number 2, auto sales getting worst. Making fun is a surprise is headline number 3. And headline number 4, sustainable highway. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Do imposter syndrome, please.
Yes, imposter syndrome. People are saying online that maybe BJ Penn needs a little help. He's a former UFC light heavyweight champion, also held gold, the 170-pound weight class as well. But according to social media posts, he apparently is losing some touch with reality. In his current downward spiral, he posted something that he believes that the government has murdered his mother and replaced her with an imposter.
Huh.
Yes, and he's posting that. He said, and he posted it recently saying, "This lady right here, that's supposed to be my mom, but look at her. Look at her butt and look at her legs. That's not my mom." Again, questions I have there that we're not going to answer this morning. He said, "She's acting like my 79-year-old mother, but she's not my 79-year-old mother. She is trying to steal everything from me, and I'm putting this out because she says she's going to get an attorney and try to do something, and she's trying to throw me out, and if I attack her, she's going to try something." So, yeah. I'm just saying he could tell mom based on butt and legs. There's so
government,
many questions.
I think aliens would be better.
Yeah, exactly. Lizard people, something.
Men in Black 1, where they wear the skin suit.
Yes, wear the skin suits. Exactly. Alrighty. So, Blake Olson in the newsroom. Auto sales getting worst. Making fun is a surprise, and sustainable highway. Your choice.
Making fun is a surprise.
Yes, making fun is a surprise. Baltero is a viral game. Now, the prototype broke out in about 2024. It was an amazing indie game. And one of the developers, who goes by the online name Local Funk, helped develop it, but didn't realize the game was actually fun until he played the beta. He had spent hours and hours and hours in development, and then he posted on social media, "Hey, this game's actually fun. I didn't know we were making a fun game," which I really want to know what was going on in all of those meetings beforehand. What did they think they were doing? Which, again, I mean, if you're talking about some of these indie games, some of these mobile games, the point is the loot boxes. The point is just to make the money. It's a pay-to-win system. So that is most of the time more of the idea behind the game than actually the game being fun. It has to just tickle your fancy like the casinos do and then get you to pay more. That's all it is. Oh, yeah, they're all based on casinos. Yeah, it's a casino model, most of those mobile games and stuff. Yeah. And thank you to EA, Electronic Arts. They're the ones that kicked that off. But that's a whole other story. Okay, final choice this morning.
EA Sports.
Yes.
It's in the game.
And also is all of your money. Auto sales getting worse or sustainable highway, my friend?
Auto sales.
Auto sales are getting worse. The car business is weakening. Just ask Volkswagen or maybe even Tesla. But this year, Volkswagen set another record. One of their products is going like gangbusters. But it's not a car. It's currywurst. A couple of years ago, VW started making their own sausage. They sold nearly 9 million units this last year. 200,000 more than their previous record in 2023. They sold almost as many sausages as cars. Their car sales are going down. Their sausage sales are going up. That is the worst news for business. And yes, pun intended. All right, back to you, sir.
Very good, Bill. Very good. That was fun. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. I want to continue the conversation we've had because we have police officers calling in, which is awesome. All right.
That's incredible.
This is a bill that was introduced that's going to be heard today down at the Colorado State Capitol. It would prohibit officers from asking drivers why they pulled them over. Right? They walk up to you and they say, "Do you know why I'm pulling you over?" Now, I don't like that question because it seems like a bit of a gotcha question. It seems like a way they could tack on stuff that maybe you weren't aware of. You're just kind of guessing at it. But I don't know. I rolled through the stop sign, or well, I was going 5 miles an hour over. Oh.
Is it the body in the trunk? Yeah, right. Whole bunch of things. You have no idea.
And so I'm not a fan of it. I don't think we should regulate it. This isn't like really the state needs to step in and tell police officers no on this. But we had a police officer in the last hour give us a call who explained why this is helpful, because he wants to use the traffic stop as a teachable moment. And so he doesn't always write tickets, but you know, if you knew why you were getting pulled over, maybe they can have a conversation with you about it and you can learn something. So, interesting perspective. We have another police officer on the line. Excited to hear from him. Bill in Denver. Good morning, Bill. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Love your show. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So my perspective on this is a little bit different from the previous officer. I love a lot of things that he said, and I appreciate a lot of them. I'm a motor cop, so for the last 20 years or so, my life at work has been pulling people over. You know, I'm on the bike, got the aviators, the big knee-high boots, the mustache, and you know when I walk up behind you, it's probably going to be, probably going to be a ticket out of it.
I got to tell you this: those boots are badass. Those boots are amazing.
Absolutely.
They're incredible. Okay, a lot of jealousy there. I got a lot of personal jealousy about those boots. Those boots are incredible. Okay, sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So I end up pulling over a lot of people in a month. And generally the way I look at it is the interaction that I have with someone, if I offer that question of, do you know why I pulled you over? They already have a lot of apprehension and there's nervousness and some anxiety involved in what just happened. You know, whenever I pull someone over or if I've been pulled over myself, you see the red and blue lights behind you, your adrenaline immediately spikes. You're a little bit worried about what's going to happen. So that first interaction with the officer walking up to you and then saying, do you know why I pulled you over? You're already in kind of a defensive mindset. So I just say straight out from the gate, my name is Bill. I work for the blank police department. The reason I pulled you over is because you were doing 45 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Can I see your license, registration, proof of insurance?
You just go right at it, right? I mean, very clear right away.
Yeah, and I don't need the person to say, if I were to say, do you know why I pulled you over? I already know, and I've got the violation that I'm prepared to do either a citation or a warning for. So it doesn't really matter what they say. And that question always puts people a little bit on the defensive. So I try to avoid that question and go right to, this is business. And then after I collect your information, then I start talking to them a little bit about, where they're going, what are the circumstances surrounding the stop. But it makes it clear for them. And there isn't this question of, is the cop trying to rope me into another charge or what's going on?
Our caller is Bill. He works as a motor vehicle officer, and we're talking about this new bill that's been introduced down at the state capitol. It's going to be heard today. It would prohibit officers from asking drivers why they pulled them over. Would you support the state of Colorado stepping in and saying police officers are prohibited by law from asking that question?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't support it. I don't think we need a state mandate that is so specific about a question that we can ask. And that's a pretty dangerous realm to step into. If you start dictating specific questions that an officer can ask during a contact, that's a slippery slope to go down. So I'm not a fan of it. I just think that officers listening and in general should realize that you can still have a teaching moment with the person and still have a very good interaction with them, but just tell them, be transparent, tell them why you pulled them over, and be real with them.
No, Bill, I want to ask you, speaking of teachable moment, I've got kids that are coming up into the driving age. In fact, our daughter just got her license this last weekend, so we're going through all of this new stuff. And I've always appreciated what you all as police motor officers have to do when you approach a car, right? Because you're literally walking into a scenario where you have no idea who you're dealing with. And what I've told my kids is, one, put the car fully into park, right? Put the hazards on, turn on the dome light, make sure your hands are totally visible. And then it's yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. Be incredibly respectful. Respond to what the officer's asking you to do, but don't be reaching around. Don't be belligerent. And if you have an issue, for instance, you believe you've been wronged, the time and place to challenge that is in a court, not on the side of the road. So go through and be respectful and understand that the police officer that's approaching you has no idea who they're dealing with, and you have to put yourself in their perspective a little bit. So what are your tips, techniques from somebody who spent as many years as you have doing traffic stops to the average Coloradan out there?
Everything that you're telling your kids is absolutely right. Hands on your dashboard. Try not to have a lot of furtive movements. Being respectful is great, but I also understand, if you're not going to be in a great mood if I pull you over. So if you're respectful, then that's fantastic. I love that. But if you're also a little bit, I don't want to say argumentative, but if you're not in the greatest mood, I understand that. But if you provide all your documents, have your insurance, your driver's license, your registration in a place that it's easy to access, you don't have to have 50 copies of old insurance. And if you're going to reach into somewhere, just let the officer know, my insurance is in my dashboard, my driver's license is in my back pocket or my purse or whatever. And just having the realization that there are a lot of times where our interactions with people aren't great and they do violent things. I mean, just a couple days ago, we had a Larimer County motor officer who was shot on a traffic stop. So it's just one of those things where everything that you said, absolutely correct. And then I can't say more for people, especially young people. Wear your seatbelt, please. In addition to pulling people over, we also investigate the injury traffic accidents, and I can't say this enough to people. Please wear your seatbelts.
It's great advice. Bill, Denver. Bill, I want to ask you again, or another question. What are you seeing out there these days that's maybe changed in the last 5 years? In all the years that you've been doing it, what's maybe new or unique that you're seeing out there in these traffic stops in the last 5 years?
Well, what's making it harder, the challenges are the fact that so many of our state laws are being watered down. The punishments are being watered down. So a lot of your driver's license requirements, your vehicle registration requirements, the punishments for those are being watered down to the point where you can have vehicles that you pull over with expired registrations that are year expired, and our ability to actually pack a punch has been just taken away. So we see a lot of that, and then there's a lot of why didn't you pull that person over? Why didn't you give them a ticket? Why are you giving me a ticket? And that discretion part of law enforcement is actually kind of interesting because, in my opinion, our discretion is 100% necessary. However, it creates a lot of complaints and a lot of strife among the community because they will see us giving one person a ticket, but then they'll see us giving another person a warning. And that discretion causes a lot of angst with people.
Well, Bill, Denver, I sure appreciate the phone call today, but more importantly, brother, thank you for being out there, being that thin blue line, between all the craziness of society. You all do incredible work. We pray for you. Stay safe out there, brother, please.
Yeah, please do. Thanks for all the hard work. You guys are wired in a way that I'm not, and I appreciate it more than you know.
I appreciate it, Bill. Get yourself some of those boots.
Oh, dude, I have no idea. I will steal them. That's how much and I'm telling this to a police officer. I'm admitting to a crime that I would steal them. That's how badly I want them. They're so cool.
The next time you get pulled over, if it's by a motor, that's what you need to say when he says, "You know why I pulled you over?" Say, "Because I want to wear your boots."
Oh, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. I will. Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. You too. Gosh, we got the greatest listeners,
That
man.
is so
We
cool.
have had 2 call in with different perspectives. 2 police officers who've done combined, it sounds like 50 years
so
of
much
motor
time out
vehicle
there.
stops.
That is, and every once in a while, when we do get some suggestions through the text messages and listeners, and every once in a while they also have very good ideas, and they said maybe we need to refer back to a classic movie starring Jim Carrey. Yes, just in case they curse again. Yes, Liar, Liar by Jim Carrey, just in case. I didn't know the curse word was right there at the beginning, so yeah. And I don't want to play it too long because
do you know why
the
I
people on
pulled
the
you
video.
over? And he just goes through a litany of about 30 issues.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't want to play it too long because the people on the YouTubes and the Rumbles and stuff, they can't get it because of copyright issues. So I didn't want to have you guys be dark for like 35 seconds. So,
We've got so many text messages on this.
Oh, fantastic.
5631. Many years ago, I was pulled over by a Colorado State patrolman near Salida. After a brief conversation, he gave me an Amway sales pitch and
that's
no
fantastic.
ticket.
That's wonderful. I hadn't thought about that. Multi-level marketing while you're on the job, surfing and protecting. That's fantastic. That's a great idea.
5556. Dems trying to pass a bill on what an officer says on a traffic stop is ridiculous. More micromanaging of the police. No wonder recruitment is down. It's a Democrat war on cops.
I'm not sure I'd do a war on cop, but it does make the job, as we heard from both officers, that it makes the job more difficult. And I think that bottom line is what we can take away from this, that this idea of preventing this avenue of exploration for whatever reason they feel it may be necessary or useful, constrains their ability to make a personal judgment in the moment, which is why we have them out there in the first place. It's why we're not having robots out there referring to another texter. That's why we don't have them. And that's why we're not trying to replace them with AI, because we want their personal judgment. That's why we employ them.
Yep. Lots of experiences of people getting pulled over. And let's see. I was pulled over by a state. This is Beth of Green Mountain Falls. I was pulled over by a state trooper, asked where I was going. I told him I identified as an Indy 500 driver driving a Nissan.
That's great.
He looked at my car and asked if I'd been taking drugs. We had a good laugh, and I was not ticketed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I mean, there was a time where I felt like every state patroller knew me by first name.
Oh, nice. Good
when
job.
I was in my 20s,
early
20s, I was a river guide, so I was always up in the mountains, driving around everywhere, and just constantly. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you again.
Oh, that's funny. That's fantastic.
It's this was a funny little family moment. Then we'll get to news with Blake Olson. My wife and I were heading up to our favorite camping spot up near Steamboat, and we were both driving, and guess who got pulled over?
Your wife?
As we were both driving separate cars.
Oh, no, she did?
It wasn't me.
No way. Oh, my gosh. Mrs. Jeff got pulled over?
Guess where the conversation was.
What?
Or about at that point, because it was, I was following you. How did I get pulled over?
Yes. Well,
you were leading.
Yes. You should have been running
Why
interference.
me?
Well, she was following you too close, and that's the issue. Because if she gave you more space and let you run interference, then he can only catch you. That's the deal. If you want to start following the person that's speeding, you got to give enough breadth between the two of you so that they get nailed first and the police pulls out, and then you're coasting afterwards. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So she was not happy that I
funny.
got away with it. But then I did the nice thing and pulled over with her.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's nice.
With the idea that I may get a ticket too.
See,
but then the police officer went, "Are you guys traveling together?" And my wife's like, "Yeah." And she goes, okay, well, this is just a warning. Be careful as you're entering the Steamboat Valley. The speed limit drops, so you got to be careful of that. And they gave us a warning, but
that's nice.
But yeah, when you and your wife are both traveling together,
yeah,
and she's the one that gets pulled over.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you hear about it.
The one thing I'll tell you this though, that when my wife and I were dating, one of the things that did attract me to her was the fact that she's a good driver. And by that I mean not only is she technically really, really skilled. She may drive as if she's qualifying for NASCAR at times. And I love that. That was one of the things I'm like, ooh, I like this. Yeah, she was, and I'm like, you get it. Yeah, because, again, this is for another day, not for today. But at one point, I lost my license for driving too fast. So, I had the restricted license and everything else. Yes.
Ooh.
My license had been suspended.
16, 17, 18 years old? Right around that
Yep, right around that
days?
time. Yeah.
Yep.
And I got so many tickets so quickly. And and again, just driving way too fast. And I will not publicly admit the wide margin in which on at least 2 occasions I have exceeded the Colorado speed limit on our highways. One on I-25, one on 225. Yes.
You're like that guy on the motorcycle that got from Colorado Springs to Denver in 15 minutes.
If you want to know how fast I was going, and again, I'm not going to publicly, I think the statute of limitations is over. I'm not going to so publicly admit everything. Just take whatever the posted speed limit is, double it minimum.
Well,
and I was going faster.
Here's the thing on this particular bill. We heard from 2 police officers, one that uses, do you know why I'm pulling you over? One that does not use, do you know why I'm pulling you over? But I have not heard a single person think it's a good idea for the state to step in and prohibit officers from asking that question. You can be like, Bill and I both agree, and one of the police officers, it's not a fair question. It kind of opens up, a sense of defensiveness already. So we don't like it, but the state legislature stepping in and writing a law prohibiting officers from asking that question, I don't like it.
Yeah,
and one officer going, no, this is an important teachable moment, and it helps me with the education of the driver. So where do you fall along the lines? Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. 38 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 64 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, we'll get to that in just a sec, but since Bill, the motorcycle officer, called, I have to play this. I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Chips.
Okay.
Did you want to be Ponch or John?
Oh, I always wanted to be Ponch, honestly, because John just... That was never it. Now, you remember the call sign on the world-famous TV show.
Yeah.
And it's actually a reference to a 90s band. Chips call sign. Yes, call sign and Chips for Ponch and John is 7 Mary 3.
Wow.
I know.
The things, I knew I was going to learn something today.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this is the stupid part, okay? I know that, but I can't do long division. So that's how worthless I am in most things that happen in life. Nobody comes up and says, quick, can you tell me what the call sign was on Chips? Never happens. But math comes up rather regularly.
I want the boots, though. I'm right there with you.
Yes, I want those boots. Those boots are badass.
Are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
So your mind goes to
awesome.
Chips. My mind, when you guys talk about MotoCop, goes to Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yes.
That
yeah,
is
Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine. That's the song that's played, when they're doing the chase. Again, can't do math. That's what happens in my head.
You pull guns and roses.
I can't. That's the problem. Do you understand what my wife and family deal with on a daily basis?
Man, it's incredible. It is. They're going to be the smartest people on planet Earth.
About all sorts of useless stuff. That's the problem.
I love it. I love it. All right. Our top story, DJT says his tariffs are working. He said he heard reports that plants under construction in Mexico and Canada were now moving to the U.S. 47 also told business leaders on Tuesday that his tariffs were having a tremendously positive impact on the economy. Associated Press, they don't think so, but Caroline Levitt, she doesn't care.
Committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have. They
That's
don't get charged on foreign companies, they get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary, go ahead.
Get out of here. Ukraine says it'll agree to a 30-day ceasefire if Russia accepts. The deal comes after a day of negotiations between Ukraine and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Marco Rubio.
Hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Ukrainian President Zelensky said his country sees the deal as a positive step, but now it's up to the U.S. to convince the Russians. Former Colonel Douglas McGregor with Tucker Carlson last night.
The Russians are not surprised by what he's done. I think they're surprised that we haven't intervened to try and stop it. That's what I think they're surprised about. So what they want now, the Russians, is an end to this nonsense. They have several options. They now have concentrations of forces in the northeastern part of Ukraine and down in the southeastern part. They can move at will at any time. They have enough force they can cross in Kherson. They can take Odessa. They can move forward and straight into Kiev. Whatever they do, they have to ask themselves, how far do we want to go to guarantee our security as Russians?
The Department of Education is losing over 1,300 employees. Department staff received an email Tuesday notifying them they had to vacate the headquarters by 6 o'clock tonight Eastern time, and that the closure was for security reasons. TikTok is rolling out a new feature it says will keep younger users safe. The social media platform is facing a potential ban in the U.S. next month over national security concerns. The new feature allows parents to limit the amount of time their children spend on the app. Speaking of TikTok, Rosie O'Donnell, she's on TikTok. She moved to Ireland because President Trump was elected. He's a dictator, you know. And but this was really weird to me. What does she mean here exactly?
Think about everyone every day and the United States of America, and I am hoping that we can turn things around. I'm counting on you, all of you, to do what's right. And I think deep down inside, we all know what that is.
Whoa!
All right. Take care. TikTok, you don't stop.
To do what's right, okay, she could have just said vote the way that she wants you to vote the next election, but she didn't say that. What's she talking about? A little TikTok, you don't stop, Rosie O'Donnell. Hey, UNC, the Bears, Big Sky Tournament Championship game tonight. They take on Montana, 1-2. If UNC wins it, they have punched a ticket to the NCAA tournament. That is going to be exciting tonight. 9:30 tip-off. CU takes on West Virginia today. First round Big 12 tournament at 1 o'clock. CSU tomorrow. And Minnesota at the Nuggets tonight in NBA action. in Lodo. 34 in Castle Pines, 35 in Louisville, 38 in Denver. And let's see, what show is this? Oh, yeah, it's the Jeff and Billy show, and it continues.
It doesn't matter. She's not doing the Bart Simpson thing on the chalkboard, writing, "I will not say pimp cane" 100 times in a row.
I did not think I was going to hear that this morning.
You are welcome.
Thank you. This is awesome. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring-like weather continues here for another couple of days. Then as we get into Friday and the weekend, we'll have a bit of a change-up. Temperatures will be well into the 60s today and well into the 60s tomorrow. Lows tonight and lows tomorrow night in the 30s. We will see thickening and increasing clouds tomorrow night. Do be ready for a change. Friday and Saturday will be quite a bit colder. Highs will just be in the 40s. While we don't expect anything heavy, some rain and snow showers Friday into early Saturday possible. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Pimp cane. Oh, boy. Our listeners are not calling for Lauren Boebert's resignation. I'm sorry, Denver Post. They're calling for an actual cane battle between Lauren Boebert and AOC.
We can do that.
I'm
in for that.
Awesome.
We can do that pay-per-view. I mean, we can pump, And the idea is, if we do that, that's got to be main event. We got to do some stuff lower down. We get some things involved there as far as low, mid-card things. Who would you like to see? And we could have all sorts of different things that you could have going on. Yes, we can have things like a challenge. Can Chuck Schumer tie his shoes in 30 seconds? Things like that. I'm just saying challenges. We could see how will they do. Yes. There are other things I'd say. Marjorie Taylor Greene doing math like I can't. Let's see what happens.
Those would be fun.
Yeah,
that would
be a lot of fun.
Make the members of Congress run the gauntlet.
Yeah. I've always thought that the presidential debates would be much more fun if you had either a talent or physical challenge portion of the contest.
Yeah.
Go for like a double dare. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes. Go after that. Double dare. Because I think
gladiators?
Yeah.
Fight with the big Q-tips?
Yeah. One of the two would be fun, only because, we're talking about, do they have the ability, the mental acuity? Do they have the stamina?
Yes.
Let's double dare it. Let's see if they can get in the pool of green slime and find the orange flag.
And you can still, look, if your chosen candidate loses the gladiator
it's fine. You can
battle,
still vote for him.
You can still vote for him.
Absolutely. I'm just saying.
Make life more entertaining.
Yeah, I'm talking about entertainment factor here, people.
Well, speaking of good things in life, I want to talk to you about my friends at the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Ate lunch there again yesterday. Bill, that's 3 times in the last 4 days.
Not just like the police still know your name. They're like, Jeff, the regular.
Right, here he is. I take my friends there because not only are they great supporters of the work that we're doing here, love Steve and Michelle, but incredible food. And everybody I've taken there talks about this because, Black Eyed Peas sometimes leans a little bit older in the demographics, so my age friends maybe haven't been eating there. Change that with them. They were going, this is the hometown comfort food they've been longing for. In fact, the guy I took yesterday to lunch at the Black Eyed Pea was like, I'm so tired of just the weird progressive food in Denver all the time. This is just good home-cooked American food. And he loved it. And fresh food. All right, so it's locally owned, operated by Steve and Michelle. I love the Black Eyed Pea. It's got 8 locations, so there's sure to be one near you. When was the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? St. Patrick's Day is coming up, so what are your plans? Make sure it includes the Irish Feast, a 3-day celebration at Black Eyed Pea. Starts this Saturday, March 15th, to Monday the 17th, which is actually St. Patrick's Day. They'll have corned beef and cabbage, slow cooked overnight, served with 2 sides. Or you can order the traditional pork bangers and mashed potatoes. They'll have Irish pie and shepherd's pie, and then here's my jam, a Reuben with sliced corned beef, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and Thousand Island dressing, all on a toasted marble rice. So good, my mouth's watering right now. So many choices, and it's all so good. Traditional Irish cheer available as well. So don't miss the Irish Feast at the Black Eyed Pea. I love everything about this restaurant. You guys know I'm Maha. Make America healthy again. And from the conservative perspective, it's not about eating flavorless wafers like the progressives want you to do, all alone in your apartment. It's about quality food, locally sourced, getting away from all the preservatives. So for me, it's the meatloaf. It's the fresh glazed carrots. It's the corn. It's the salads. Everything is just so fresh there. Absolutely fantastic. I love everything about this restaurant, and I know you will too. So let them do the cooking for you and keep that business in Colorado. Support great patriots like Steve and Michelle. Visit at Black Eyed Pea near you for lunch today. All right, I want to get to this when we come back. Department of Education fires 1,300 workers, guts its staff. The layoff means that the department will now have a workforce about half the size of it did when President Trump took office. Do you support this? I sure do. Or are we tanking our children's futures? We'll get to that and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. And Dwayne, we're coming to you as well. Hang with us.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Dwayne Divide. Always good to hear from Dwayne. Good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. A couple of things. We were down in Texas for the COTA Circuit of Americas for our race. I've been building a couple of race cars for a gentleman. And afterwards, we were like, where do we go to have a good time? And they had a $30 cover to watch street bums, pimp cake fighting. And it was, pretty good, $30 cover, but you could bet. And there was, one eye and 8 fingers. And I was sitting there going, well, one eye can't see half the stuff, so it's in. But apparently 8 fingers really likes to kick butt, so I lost money on that. So as far as pimp cane fighting goes, it's an underground sport. It's far more popular than you think. As far as
so you're saying I have a second career ahead of me. I'm excited.
Well, there you go. Just don't be known as one eye or 8 fingers, and you'll be fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah. One time, family was coming up from the East Coast, and my father was like, "Get in the car." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm staying here." And well, anyway, the alternator in the car dies. Now we lived in Black Forest, and Stapleton's a couple of weeks away. And he says, "I need a part." And I said, "You going to apologize?" He goes, "Don't make me talk to you like this." So I get the parts, throw it in the back of the car, and we're driving up I-25. It's a week before Christmas in the 80s, so there's, 7 people on the road? And I'm flying. I mean, literally, I'm 3 figures plus. Bill, I understand your situation. You don't look down after a while.
Yep, you don't.
And and so then all of a sudden I look as I pass through Castle Rock, and I see 2 headlights. And I'm like, okay, better slow it down. So from 110 to 90 to 80, and he's catching up. I'm slowing down. So just before I come up into Denver, I see the lights, and he's behind me, and I'm like, oh. So I get over from the left lane to the right lane. He follows, right lane to the left lane. We do the little dance, and then he finally hits the lights, and he pulls me over. I roll the window down, hands outside the car so he can see that I'm not a threat. He walks up and he says, "What's the problem?" And I said, "I've got to get to the airport. My father's car is broken." He goes, "Interesting story. Keep going." I said, "May I?" So I reach over with my pinky finger and hit a button under the dash. The trunk opens up. I said, "I'll get out and I'll show you." So we get out, back of the trunk. It's nicely detailed, and there's the alternator, the wrenches, and everything else. And he goes, "Okay, you've got a story. Let's talk." And I explained the situation and everything else. And he goes, "You were doing," I said, I wasn't doing anything. I was doing 55 when you pulled me over. And he says, "But I caught you elsewhere." And I said, "Yes, and your captain's going to be upset because you have a turn signal light out. Now, they can't have a car on the road that's not 100% legal." And he looked at me and he said, "You wouldn't." I said, "I don't know. You wouldn't write me a ticket right now, would you?" And I said, "Uh-huh." So we're doing the dance. And I said, "If you gave me about 5 minutes, I've got another amber light there for your car." He goes, "Really?" I said, "Oh, yeah, there's no sense in going back to the shack and everything." So I said, "Let me do that for you while you consider what you're going to do to me." So I whip out real quick, put the light in, put everything back on. I still leave the trunk open so he knows everything's cool. And he says, "Get back in the car." And he looks at me and he goes, "You got to get your taillight fixed." Now mine are flashing and everything's clean because I didn't have a drug or alcohol problem. I had a Ford Mustang problem. And I said, "Taillight?" He goes, "Yeah, get the taillight fixed." And and he goes, "Do you not get it, stupid? I'm letting you go." I was like, "Oh." And he says, "But if I catch you doing, if I catch you doing 56, I said, you'll soon see me doing 95. So he said, "Don't." So anyway, got up, took care of everybody. We all came home. Life is good. But again, street bum, pimp cake fighting. I have to sit there and say that might be the new thing to see on ESPN 9.
That's nice. That's okay. There's a part of it that, Dwayne, and one, you're making me think that I need to get some lights. I have some lights from my car that I keep in a portion there just because, you buy them in bulk sometimes. So I need to get some that'll be installed in the police officer cars. I like that. Now, when you were talking about the pimp fighting and the pimp cane fighting, did take me back to, this would have been late 20s in young Billy's life. And this is before... it's just about a couple of years before they built Coors Field. I had a friend that worked as a chef, and he lived down in that area. It was very dilapidated, and it was cheap. And there was a liquor store He was on the second floor, right across the street from his place. There was a liquor store, dirt parking lot, okay? Not paved. That's how it is. And you had to clear. There was slightly a way to get into the dirt parking lot, but most people just went up and over the curb, okay? That's a place we're dealing with. Right across the street from him. Now, oftentimes on either a Friday or a Saturday evening, if we had nothing to do, we would go to his house and imbibe a few adult beverages until about 11:30 at night, because that's when you got wino fights. Because they had pooled their money and bought the biggest jug of Ernest and Julio Gallo they could get. And they started about 8 o'clock. And by 11:30, it's running out. And then there were accusations over who drank too much, who got this. And eventually, it was going to be two drunk winos fighting. And then we would encourage them and yell. And they would try to scream stuff at us, etc. But that was entertainment. And it was completely and totally free.
Well, there is that. One time I'll have to talk about my Saipan visit where I watched a street sow in its situation. It was quite entertaining to see that as well. Again, this street bum, Pimke, it's all a joke, but I mean, we have different things we can do. Just wanted to sit there and peek in real quick, guys. Love the show. Education department, let's get rid of that, but let's, not necessarily a chainsaw, but could we use something a little bit more finessed? Maybe not an obsidian blade, but let's work with something here to keep things going in a positive note. Miss you guys, but I've been so swamped with everything working on these cars. It's just like, please, please.
Dwayne, we love you, brother. Thanks so much for checking in.
I hope your kid's doing well.
All right. So, as Dwayne pointed out, Department of Education firing 1,300 workers on Tuesday, effectively gutting the agency, the New York Times says, that manages federal loans for colleges, tracks student achievement, and enforces civil rights laws in schools. The layoff means that the department, which started the year with 4,133 employees, will now have a workforce of about half that size after less than 2 months with President Trump in office. In addition to the 1,315 workers that were fired on Tuesday, 572 employees accepted separation packages offered in recent weeks, and 63 probationary workers were terminated last month. It has been the dream of conservatives since its inception under the Carter regime to end the Department of Education, because for the most part, education is decided at the state level, and even in places like Colorado at the local level. So to have the Department of Education, which over the years has not brought much improvement, if any at all, to America's education of its children, terminated, is a good thing. I worked in higher education for 8 years. There's not a single thing that the Department of Education was doing that benefited anybody other than just continued regulations that had to be followed by the university, to the point where I remember one time we were thinking about just hiring a person totally dedicated to the sheer number of regulations we had to deal with on a regular basis. So, this is a better way to return the power of education to the states, and I don't see any real improvement that took place since the inception of the Department of Education to actually improving education for children in America. Bill, your thoughts?
I think this is going to end up being a negative, and we've already heard that some of this funding, everybody's yelling and screaming and high-fiving each other about, oh, look, the department's going away. But some of that funding and functionality is just going to be absorbed by their departments. It's not as if what you're mad about is going away. It's just going to be a different name on the top of the letterhead. So I don't think this gets you to where you really, really think that you're going. The other reason that I push back is because of some of the civil rights and special ed rules. And the reason those are enforced for one of the kids, like my son, who was a student for years, is because of the Department of Education. Some local school districts wouldn't have implemented some of the programs, some of the support services that he needed in order to succeed inside of school, given that it's not there. But if that's what we want, we don't want the funding for those special ed and special need kids, fine. That's it. But understand you're going to have to then support them at some point because some of them are not going to get out there and necessarily, without the educational support, be able to transition into functional 40-hour-a-week jobs. So you're going to end up having your tax money support them on the other end in one form or another. So rather than giving them the skills in order to succeed, okay, That's fine.
So
but understand the bargain you're taking.
Civil rights being moved over to Justice Department, and services for disabled students, to your point, Bill, over to Health and Human Services Department. So a lot of those will continue.
In theory. But again, when we're going through and Doge and everything, maybe there aren't going to be people there that are actually given the purview to look at it. Maybe they don't have the time to look at it. Maybe the enforcement isn't going to be there. So districts that don't do it and don't comply and shortchange those students because those kids are only in school for a certain number of years. And maybe they don't get the services they need. Okay, but then we can't then complain on the other end of things. This is the weird part that I don't understand in this is local control of education has been there for years as far as educational outcomes, yet we're blaming the government agency that does not direct curriculum in many cases. And so that's it. It's like, but if the failure, and I've seen this a lot, the idea that, that the students aren't doing well, but that would be a local reflection. I fail to see how that it's a national
not
reflection.
Every state is as local control as Colorado is. But we started, the strongest indictment from my perspective, is we launched this thing in the late 70s. I think it was 79. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse for America's kids as education has declined and our competition against other countries has gotten, we've declined in those rankings as well. So
are you saying
what has gotten better for America's education since the inception of the Department of Education?
I have two questions on that. One, the first would be, if we are spending more and getting worse results, is that an indictment of the system in your mind? Does that mean the system that we have doesn't work?
Yes.
Okay. Then later on, we should talk about healthcare because we're doing the same thing. We're paying more and getting worse results.
I'd be happy to challenge that as well.
But all the times we talk about the fact that America is this great place for healthcare. Yet we spend more and get worse results. Not necessarily comparative, but comparatively,
I think we're spending more because of government involvement with healthcare.
But again, and I would disagree on that one. But the other part is that because the government system that is run has the most cost-efficient way of providing healthcare, they spend less than what you do as far as private insurance and et cetera. So that's the idea, is based on reimbursements and everything else. So they don't necessarily spend more. And so the government, I disagree with that one. But the other part is, show me where the Department of Education has been able to affect the educational outcomes directly based on student achievement inside of the U.S., because that's not necessarily their purview. There have been moments in which we talk about looking at consolidation of requirements, the idea of Common Core, etc. But the Common Core came out of a push by conservatives for standardized.
That was a mistake.
But the issue is they wanted to standardize education across the country because we didn't know what these kids were learning, and letting these states choose themselves, even down to the local school district, was at the time a mistake. So that was a push by conservatives. That's the last major educational shift that was functioned by the Department of Education, and it was done through incentives, not necessarily restrictions on funding. There were incentives that were tied into it that were done that way. So the other problem is, so show me where we assume that the Department of Education was affecting the change that we are looking to see at our local school districts. Because for me, if you want to look at it, a lot of it comes back to taxes. A lot of it comes back to eroding the tax base. We hear about it in the Jeffco schools. They can't compete. They just can't compete based on what their salaries are. So they're losing some of the best teachers because the best teachers will go and chase the paycheck.
Nope. Department of Education. I disagree. Department of Education's been around for over 40 years. Education has not gotten worse. Education spending has gone up. We spend more as a nation on education than any other nation, and it's not working. And having a big bloated federal bureaucracy that was particularly driving agendas. Time to go. We'll get to your phone calls and texts on this. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to continue in the 8 o'clock hour. Brandy Bradley, we're going to talk with briefly, and Darcy Shanning is live in studio. She wants to be the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Boy, oh boy, it's a spicy show today. You're not going to want to miss it. And then we'll get into electric cars and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, all that. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader. We are News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. I want to go quickly to the phone lines because Brandy Bradley, I love this. I love when lawmakers like text us and they're like, hey, I got something big coming up. Can I jump on the show real quick? I'm like, heck yeah, do it. So, Brandy Bradley, good morning. You got a big bill up to be heard today.
Good morning. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
So what's up?
So I have a child protection bill. It's not allowing for pleading of probation when you rape a child in Colorado. We had 70 people plead down to probation after raping a child in our state last year. And we are going to take that off the table.
I remember you came on our show and talked about it. So today's the day that bill is being heard. How many Democrats have joined you in protecting children in Colorado from predators?
Well, Representative Regina English is on the bill with me, and Senator Mark Snyder in the Senate is on the bill with me. And so we just have to convince the judiciary, which is the kill committee, to put these people in jail and not let them plead down. And so far we're hearing that we don't think that it's due process for the criminal and things like that. So we're going to put them on the spot. If they don't want to put child rapists in jail, then we are going to make sure the Colorado knows that.
Wow. And that's up today. What time?
1:30 is when judiciary starts. We're the fourth bill on the docket, so it's probably not going to be heard till about 3 or so.
So if people want to testify, it's going to be a little bit later in the afternoon. They can do that via Zoom, because I imagine lots of moms out there, dads, very busy in the afternoons, but they can testify in support of this bill. How might they do that?
If you go onto the Colorado website, if you can really just Google, how do I remote testify for Judiciary Committee, and it will pull up every link, or you can go to any of my social media. I've got Representative Brandy Bradley on Facebook. I've got Bradley for Colorado on X. I have all of it listed. I make it very easy. Even if you just want to send an email to all of the people on judiciary saying we will not continue to allow child rapists to plead probation for raping a child in our state, that would be great.
Now, Brandy, go ahead. Got a question for you. Why, when they're saying that it violates due process, is it because of a lack of going from probation, to above charges? What's the reasoning behind the idea that they don't believe this is a part of due process?
Well, they have said that there are sex offenders that are waiting too long to go through sex offender treatment versus getting out on parole, and we know through multiple statistics that is simply not true. People that are on the wait list, the problem with the DOC wait list is that you have combined criminals on that wait list for parole eligibility. Some of these criminals will never see the light of day. Some of these criminals have waived their right to the wait list because they are waiting on a plea deal for other crimes that they have committed. So they're remaining silent on this particular crime. So they've congratulated all of these people onto one wait list. And so when you factor it all out, there might be one person that has waited a couple months past their parole date to get out of jail. And they're saying that there's hundreds of people, and it's simply just not true.
Well, the weird part on that is that's just an issue of funding and making the system work better. The idea of changing the punishment by course for defendants, I think, flies in the face of the idea in and of itself. That so basically what I'm hearing is that just to bring it into like an immigration argument, that since we have a long backlog of 5 to 7 years to get through our immigration courts, the solution then is just to make everybody a citizen. That's what I'm hearing. The illogic behind the argument that because these people have to wait through long to the system to get into these programs, that obviously then we have to change how we're charging them. That doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense.
And another Democrat said that a felony for is not actual penetration. Well, it's inappropriate touching with the purpose of sexual gratification and arousal. So, they can come with whatever they want. We have plenty of stuff to back it up. I am ready to fight this. I am ready to put these rapists in jail, and I'm ready to fight for the children of Colorado.
Yeah, please do. And anybody that does have that statement about, well, this law isn't X, Y, or Z, do me a favor, just personally, do me a favor and ask them if they would allow one of these people to touch their child or grandchild in the same manner and agree that it is not a violation. Just ask them. Ask them if they're willing to do that. Yeah,
well, see. And joining Brandy Bradley down there will be George Brockler testifying in support of Brandy's bill. He just texted us, said this is common sense.
Yes, and speaking of common sense, Brandy, I'm assuming that also you're going to be able to tell us real quickly before we get to Blake's news that your bill about do not resuscitate, when we work in all that hospitals or doctors do that and put that on to a notice about a child that is in the hospital without their parent approval. We would assume that common sense reigned supreme inside of our Golden Dome, and that obviously passed with flying colors, right?
oh, the Democrats killed that bill. They said that that's illegal and that's not happening. And we had 5 different families say that it happened, and that wasn't enough for them. 5 families whose children were
I want to take a moment to just point this out, okay?
Yeah.
We spent the first part of the show, Bill.
Thank you. That's exactly where I was thinking right now. Exactly, my friend. Yeah, continue. Exactly where I was going.
We spent the first part of this show pointing out that Democrat lawmakers would like to tell police officers that they cannot, by law, ask you when you get pulled over why you think you get pulled over. Like why you thought you may have broken a law. They want to introduce a law that specifically prevents those police officers from asking a question.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're willing to allow do not resuscitate orders to be made on children without parental consent.
More importantly, without asking a question. Without going ahead and asking the question. Oh, my head hurts. My head hurts.
See why I deserve flowers every day for going into
do.
the insanity? I'm telling you.
You deserve hazard pay. Oh, gosh.
Well, and also a huge shout out to George Brockler. Brockler's office brought this Child Protections Against Rape. They have been fierce advocates. George is a fierce advocate for Douglas County. We are so lucky to have him. And I think that's why they keep going after local control, because they can't stand that Douglas County is doing it so well. So hats off to him.
Well, Brandy Bradley will be tracking this. Thank you so much for taking time to give us a call and check in with the
Keep
Jeff
up the
and
hard
Bill
work.
show.
We appreciate you. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, we've got Darcy Shanning in studio. She wants to be the next chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. We're going to talk to her. But first, Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Thanks, Jeff and Billy. 39 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 64 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, DJT's tariffs on steel and aluminum are now in effect. The tariffs are 25% on metals. They come into the U.S. from any country in the world, including allies. It's expected to raise the costs for U.S. automakers and their industries, although the move is supported by many American steel and aluminum manufacturers.
The biggest win is not the tariff. That's a big win. That's a lot of money. But the biggest win is if they move into our country and produce jobs. That's a bigger win than the tariffs themselves. But the tariffs are going to be throwing off a lot of money to this.
Ukraine says it'll agree to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia if Moscow accepts. Marco Rubio in talks all day in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday.
Now, hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball's now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Former Colonel Douglas McGregor says we need to be concerned with the cartels and all the hell that they have created in Mexico and in this country. They have freaking missiles from Ukraine on the border.
It's bizarre, but it's real. And you pointed out the weapons going down there are serious. I was down there and we talked to several people who are border patrolmen, also talked to some Texas Guard people. They said we just go 100 yards on the other side into Mexico, and behind the ridge line over there, you'll see all the weapons, all the RPGs, the Javelin missile systems that have found their way to Mexico.
Javelin missile system?
Yeah, we've got it. They've got those things over there.
From Ukraine?
Yeah, sure. Well, we sent over, I don't know how many, 1,000 of them? And several hundred were captured by the Russians. And then I'm sure several were sold on the black market. I mean, about 50% of everything that showed up there ended up somewhere that didn't belong.
He was on with Tucker last night. Thank God 47 is in office. Over 1,300 employees are being fired from the Department of Education. They have to vacate the headquarters by 6 o'clock tonight Eastern Time. Representative Keith Self calls transgender rep Sarah McBride, who was born a man, Mr. Bill Keith loses his mind.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
sorry.
could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
Yeah, and Jeff and Billy will talk about that later in the show. The weirdo hypocrite Bernie Sanders says these are the most frightening times ever in his life because of DJT.
These are, the scariest times in my lifetime. That's all. I think that's objectively the truth. It is not just they want to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs for working people. Frankly, that's happened before. Yeah. But you combine that with the power of the oligarchy in general. You combine that with Mr. Musk owning Twitter and able to send out his messages to hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, my goodness. UNC Big Sky Tournament tonight, championship game. If they win, they are headed to the NCAA tournament. They have to beat the Grizz from Montana. CU takes on West Virginia today. CSU in action in their first game in the Mountain West Conference tournament. Tomorrow we have Minnesota and the Nuggets tonight in NBA action in Lodo. 36 in Englewood, 37 in Arvada, 39 in Denver. The Jeff and Billy show continues.
The innovation would also be weighted in terms of solving their everyday problems, which are beyond my craving for Doritos.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring-like weather continues here for another couple of days. Then as we get into Friday and the weekend, we'll have a bit of a change-up. Temperatures will be well into the 60s today and well into the 60s tomorrow. Lows tonight and lows tomorrow night in the 30s. We will see thickening and increasing clouds tomorrow night. Do be ready for a change. Friday and Saturday will be quite a bit colder. Highs will just be in the 40s. While we don't expect anything heavy, some rain and snow showers Friday into early Saturday possible. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So she's live in studio. Darcy Shanning, she's running for Colorado GOP chairwoman. And it's a battle between her and Britta Horn. Now Richard Holtorf's in there. I think Lori Sane's in as well. Now I'm not endorsing in this. I just decided after years of being in Republican politics, everybody's my friend. They all get an opportunity to come on the show and engage in these issues. Darcy, I want to talk first about Kyle Clark and the conversation you had, because I watched it yesterday, all 25 minutes, and it's one of the best moments I've seen of Republicans engaged with Kyle Clark ever. It was impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And he's interviewed a lot of people. And here's what I liked about it. Okay, so first, I think he totally underestimated you.
For
All
sure.
right? And I was talking to my wife. It reminds me, and this is one of our favorite movies, but Legally Blonde, where everybody in the movie underestimates Reese Witherspoon, and she comes roaring through in the court case at the end, right? And I think you showed poise. You didn't break. You didn't back down. You were articulate and quick. And most importantly, from my perspective, what I liked is you didn't back down from your positions. He kept trying to guilt you into backing down, like on trans issues, and you just, no, this is what I believe. You really want to shut down government-run schools? Yeah, I do. Aurora's a third world hellhole? Yeah. I mean, they have Venezuelan gangs. But he kept trying to guilt you, like he does most Republicans, into backing down. And a lot of Republicans I see that go on that program try to moderate. They're like, "Oh, well, Kyle, I don't really believe that. It was just, But you were just like, "Yeah, that's who I am. That's what I believe." I thought you were a good articulate of conservative principles.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Were you nervous?
No, not at all.
Why not? I mean, he's ended some Republicans' careers.
He's not going to end mine. I mean, as Ryan Sheeling said on the air the other day, I'm extremely principled, and, I know who I am. I stand in my values. And if you know who you are and you know what you stand for, then there's nobody that can take you down like that, Kyle Clark included. And he didn't.
It's worth watching. I think Republicans should go watch how you handled Kyle Clark. It's 25 minutes. It's a good conversation. So remind me again when this vote is taking place.
It's March 29th.
March 29th. So we're just a few weeks away from this. Give me the lay of the ground. Like I mentioned, there's a number of other great people in this. Richard Holtorf, Britta Horn, Lori Sane. You're out there talking to people. What are you hearing?
Well, as you know, there's, kind of a divide in the party right now. So there's two camps of voters primarily. So there's what's known as the Britta side, and then it sounds like there's what's known as the Darcy side, and those are the two sides that are kind of emerging as of right now.
You don't see Richard Holtorf and Danielle Neuschwanger, who were on our show Monday, by the way, rising up?
No.
Too late, you think?
It's not just that it's too late. Listen, I love Richard Holtorf. He's a honest guy. He's funny. He's fun to be around. I mean, I'd love to have a beer with him and some pizza, but he's not going to lead our state, and especially not with Danielle Neuschwanger on the ticket. Listen, I like Danielle. We've always gotten along. I saw her last night. I gave her a hug, but she re-registered with the party on January 6th. The governor's race situation last cycle was a mess with her involvement. There's just no way. And he's not going to get support from most Republicans with that type of ticket. And then with a history of, he on the House floor said that he paid for his girlfriend's abortion. He was in a debate in Evergreen where he pulled a gun out when he was talking about Second Amendment rights. Like I said, I love the guy. Love you, Richard. But, he's not the next chair of the Colorado GOP.
I think Bill brought up a really important question with Danielle Neuschwanger as well, was, okay, we understand that you went away from the party and now you've come back. That happens to some people. Right. Okay. Where were you in November? And do you think that that's an appropriate thing for someone that's now seeking leadership, right? Like maybe if you've did that 5 or 6 years ago and you've spent 5 or 6 years working in local party infrastructure, out there registering people to vote, doing fundraising, that type of thing. Okay, I can see that, but specifically, what were you doing in November to help Republicans?
I would go a step further, because if we remember, Danielle was running through the primary to be the nominee for governor and had pledged to support the eventual nominee. Then, when she wasn't the nominee, not only did not support the nominee that was chosen by the party, left the party and ran against the choice. Yeah. That to me is a level more than just leaving the party and coming back like the prodigal son. This is different. This is actively campaigning to defeat a Republican. And that's something that, again, I'm not a member of either party, but for me, I look at that and go, wait a minute here. I have a lack of faith that this person is coming to the table genuinely wearing the jersey. I want to know why you're not a bandwagoner at this point, but that's personal.
I totally agree. It's not just a matter of leaving the party. It's like you said, where were you in November? Where were you in Durango with the schools? Where were you anytime anything has gone on? Name one door that you've knocked on. Name one ballot that you've cured. And that's the thing. You can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk. You have to put in the work. And to be the next chair of the Colorado GOP, as I continue to say, we need doers. We can't just have people that pick up a microphone and say, here's what I want to do. I want to get Republicans elected. I want to fundraise. I want to flip the state, and I want unity. Those are the 4 things you hear. Okay, how are you going to do it, number 1, and show me some ounce of proof that you know how to do it and that you've demonstrated that you're willing to do this work and that you do it year after year. And Danielle has not done that, nor have any of the other candidates in this race for Colorado GOP chair.
We're talking with Darcy Shanning. She's running for Colorado chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. All right, so let's talk unity. Last time we were together, Britta was sitting right next to me when she was served a lawsuit from you.
Mm-hmm.
Why not, in the name of unity, drop the lawsuits, move forward? Is it really important to drive these lawsuits forward against people like Britta Horn?
Okay, so yes, the lawsuits need to stop. And to that end, that's part of my long game strategy here. How do we as a party continue to exist and fundraise and do all the things we're supposed to do when internally we don't trust our own bylaws, we don't work internally to triage disputes, and we instead go to external court systems and judges and bankrupt the party? I helped raise those funds that Eli Bremer, Britta Horn, Todd Watkins, and Christy Burton Brown depleted from the party coffers. So I led the candidate initiative in 2024 to help candidates strategize, get them accurate data, help get them volunteers and resources. And there were several critical candidates that I believed, based upon the money that we had before that lawsuit, I believed we would have money for them. I then had to go to those candidates and say, I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry, Stan. I'm sorry, Scott. We don't have money because it's tied up in that lawsuit. And that's not fair. Not only does that decrease candidate confidence and it weakens our ability to recruit good candidates, which I'm actively working on already right now, but it also decreases donor confidence. Those donors, I can promise you, did not give over $100,000 to be robbed of it by an internal party dispute. So the people who did that, which the judge found that they were in the wrong, those seats belong to the current leadership. So the people who spent that money trying to take those seats, it has to be put back. And if people are going to do that in the future, which I hope, it's my hope we create bylaws to prevent that. But if that happens in the future, same thing. You got to pay that back. We can't be a party operating like that.
So the lawsuit against Britta, against Eli and others is an effort to recoup lost revenue.
Yes.
Or lost donations that came in as a result of their legal challenges, and to send a message to anybody else that if you try to go through that similar process, you're gonna end up having to pay.
Yeah, you have to pay for it. We can't just waste donor dollars. Donor dollars are for 2 things: getting candidates elected and keeping the lights on. It's not for internal party disputes. That has to stop.
Interesting. Talking to Darcy Shanning, candidate for Colorado Republican Party chairwoman. All right, Britta's going to be on Kyle Clark tonight. Lori Sain, I haven't heard much from. Is she getting out there?
Not really. So I know that she was supposed to be at the Arapahoe Tea Party last night, but the connection was bad. She was not at her own county's meeting on Saturday in Weld County. It was up there. She's not there. So I don't know what the strategy is there.
And you've now been on the show multiple times. You're going out there. You've got an entire infrastructure. You got people helping you.
Yeah.
You're building a pretty strong effort to try to win this over. And as you mentioned, it seems to be coming down between you and Britta Horn. If Britta wins, would that lawsuit go away?
I would assume that if Britta Horn were the new GOP chair, that yes, she would squash that lawsuit. But, that's an interesting question because legally speaking, I would think that the prior party officers could keep that going in some personal capacity if they decided to.
Has she been sued in her personal capacity?
She has.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll have to ask her about that as well because that happened while we were at the IHOP last time. Britta being served right there in front of us. All right. Let's talk about unity then and how you build it forward. Obviously, with those folks, you feel it's necessary to bring about a lawsuit to rectify a wrong and to send a message moving forward. Okay. I'm probably the only person in America that worked for Mitt Romney and has spoken at Biker for Trump rallies. Okay. I'm just kind of the enemy is the left. We need to focus on the left. That's where our energy needs to be. And I'm happy to have anybody on the bus that moves forward.
Yeah.
Now, with that, I try to balance out our principles with people that may not clearly share all of our principles, right? So, for instance, log cabin Republicans. I believe it's important for Republicans to maintain a commitment to traditional marriage. Log cabins don't.
Right.
But they're willing to help us take on Democrats. So, okay, we get on the bus so long as we don't lose our principles as Republicans, right? And you have to balance that out. How do you build a Republican Party where the old guard, right? The what some people would claim rhinos, or feel like they can contribute and advance and move forward. But at the same time, I like a Republican Party that's more tapped into blue collar, grassroots, MAGA. I mean, we're getting stuff done with Trump that Bush and Reagan never could, like closing the Department of Education, right? So there's something to appreciate about the MAGA side. But at the same time, I want a bigger Republican Party that includes some of the old guard, maybe some former Mitt Romney supporters, right? How do you do that? Or do we need to do that?
Well, I mean, obviously we never want to water down our principles, as I continue to say. So to draw in those or to keep those people, that's a two-sided argument, right? Some people say, well, listen, if they don't want to be a part of the party, if they don't want to be a part of this party under President Trump, who's, like you just said, doing more than anybody ever could or anybody would have ever imagined, then are those people truly Republicans? What do they want here? And so if we don't stand by President Trump and we don't say, okay, listen, this aggression, this way of getting things done, it's working. Yeah. And I have heard that. One of my friends who lives in the Springs, and I would say she's a really moderate Republican. We talked yesterday and she said, he wasn't my choice. Nikki Haley was my choice. But look at what he's doing. And she's like, how is he getting all of this done? But then she did still say, now he is still out there saying crazy stuff. And, can you make President Trump stop saying crazy stuff? No. But like I said on Kyle Clark, I, as the Colorado GOP chair, I can have a comms team that says, okay, let's temper this down a little. You're a passionate individual. Let's kind of hone this message. And so that's the best we can do. And, we can't force people to be part of our party.
Well, and I think there's a responsibility on that side, too, to recognize what's happened. So, look, I came from that world. I worked for Ryan Call in the state party. I remember after 2012, we did all of these little meetings about how we were too country club-ish and we need to go out there and appeal to grassroots and change kind of how people look at the Republican Party. So they did that. Like, they went out and did it. And then Trump delivered on that in a way that those guys could have never imagined. But I've always found it interesting that they're very smart. They're very smart people who seem to be hung up on Donald Trump and a more blue-collar Republican Party, and for whatever reason are now using their energy to bash a current Republican Party. Right. Like Dick Watt, 90% of Dick Wadham's articles in the Gazette are how terrible the Republican Party is.
I know.
And what I find ironic on that is when I was working for Ryan Call, it was RMGO and Dudley Brown and they're creating division and they're not allowing Republicans to go out there and fight Democrats. Okay, now things have switched and grassroots blue collar has control and the guys are following the same playbook of spending a lot of time bashing the operations of the Republican Party as opposed to going out there and helping them win.
Right.
And I just find it like, okay, there's responsibility on that side as well.
There's responsibility on all sides.
Yeah.
And that's what I continue to tell everybody. Like you said, you've worked for the state GOP. It's, my good friend Garrett Flicker, who's the vice president of Log Cabin Republicans. We have this conversation all the time. It's like things just go back and forth, back and forth. What in 2022, during the U.S. Senate race, I orchestrated a Senate forum in Monument. And I asked Valdemar Archuleta, who was the chair of Log Cabin at the time, to help me moderate it. And Valdemar, a lot, he wasn't all over the place back then like he is now, right? So he shows up in his big sequin MAGA hat and some kind of American flag jacket and rainbow shirt. And I kid you not, I almost got thrown out of 2 or 3 boards that I served on with the quote unquote old guard that you just mentioned, right? Why? Because they don't think like us, because that group doesn't think like us at all. And how could I have a gay guy on stage? And now you kind of see a switch where like everybody's working with Log Cabin. And I use Log Cabin as an example. I think Colorado is ready. They're ready for a leader that says, look, guys, here are our goals. Here's what I'm doing right now as your chair to achieve those. And here's what I need you to do. Even Joe Altman, he posted on social media this morning. He's coming out with his endorsement of me. Joe Altman asked me, how can we unify? If that guy's asking, hey, like, how can both sides of the party come together? We're ready. And I think that we are going to really come together in this next cycle.
We're talking with Darcy Shannon. She's a candidate for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. When we come back, I want to ask you specifically about those goals, because I think unifying, the easiest way to unify is to win. So Republicans start winning, you'll start to see unification around winners. I want to ask you about how you plan to win and more. You don't want to miss this conversation. Darcy Shannon, chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studio is Darcy Shannon. She's running for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. A lot of questions coming in via text message. We'll ask some of that. You and I were talking in an effort to seek unity. You mentioned that if Britta Horn, Eli Bremer, and others showed up to negotiate a settled deal on what happened last year, you'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, because like I said on previous shows, it's not about a personal vendetta. It's just about making the party whole in some type of way where we can restore confidence and have confidence moving forward that lawsuits are not going to be the way of the Colorado GOP. So if I plan to call them in the coming weeks. But listen, if Eli said, hey, I want to come in and mail out thank you cards and help fundraise or, hold an event at my house to help raise money for the Colorado GOP, great. Great. Just show us that you want to move forward and you want to help restore those funds and you weren't just doing it for personal gain.
What outreach did you engage in before filing the lawsuit? How did you outreach to them beforehand to talk about it?
Well, there wasn't any. That's not
why.
It's not incumbent upon me. I mean, the officers are the ones that initiated the lawsuit, so I don't have any authority over that until I'm chair.
I know, but didn't you raise your hand when the conversations were going on? I mean, you held the lawsuit and you handed it in front of Britta. There weren't any conversations. We didn't reach out. There was no outreach that you know of. And so you don't have no idea whether or not they outreached them or not.
I honestly wasn't part of those conversations.
That's shocking. That's shocking that no one would. That it's from what the information that we have here on the table is that no one from the state party would reach out first. That lawsuit was the first choice. I just find that interesting. Okay, that's fair. Interesting choice.
Darcy, another question coming in text messages. You were concerned about donor dollars being used to fight this lawsuit instead of helping candidates. Were the donor dollars coming in for the Republican Party under Dave Williams' leadership purely used for the Republican Party, or were they being utilized for his primary race?
So, that's a really good question. People ask that all over the place, and no matter what you put in front of them, they kind of don't want to accept it. I can categorically say 100% and put my life savings on it. He did not take money for his own primary race. I've seen the statements. I saw how the transactions were made. The same mechanism that Dave Williams used for his race with the bulk mail account was used by 3 other candidates, which nobody's talking about. That money was not only paid back, but a larger donation was given by the chair back to the party. Totally legal mechanism. In fact, it was dismissed. I mean, so what are we talking about here? If the courts dismissed it and nobody can find any proof on paper that happened because it was a legal mechanism, it's just a moot point now. He didn't do that.
All right, Darcy Shannon, she's a candidate to become chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party, joining us. Let's talk specifics on what the Republican Party could look like in 2026, 2027. What do you plan to deliver for Republicans in Colorado?
Sure. So as some of you may know, I've been building our Build Our Benches initiative. So I have a candidate recruitment tool on my website right now to recruit good candidates early. I've been having tons of conversations with school board candidates across the state, talked to a lot of people just in the last couple of weeks about where they've got vacancies coming up. And my team is building a comprehensive database of all the vacancies for the school board elections in 2025 and local elections. And then for 2026, all of the elections. And then we're filling in those spots. We're talking to candidates, right? Like a GOP should be doing. But we haven't seen chairs do this ever. So we're putting together a system by which we're giving the donors confidence that their money is going to go somewhere. We're going to flip school board seats and hold on to school board seats in 2025. Take that momentum, that confidence that we've built with the donors, the volunteers, the activists, the candidates, and then in 2026, we're going to take back even more seats in the Senate, the House, and we're going to have such a robust system and on-point data that we're going to work really hard to reclaim the governor's office and some state seats.
What I appreciate about that, and I said this to Dave because we're friends when he first got elected, is win locally. I think the electorate is so, look, they're putting into office Phil Weiser and Jenna Griswold, right? So there's an intelligence problem with our electorate right now when they're looking at Jenna Griswold and going, that's who I want in statewide leadership. So I said to Dave, go win locally. And then it seemed like the pivot was more towards these congressional seats in his own primary and stuff like that. So I appreciate what you're doing, because a great example of somebody that taking a very basic step and getting a city council seat and then launching to international prominence is Danielle Jurinsky.
Right.
From a city council seat. You don't have to win statewide in order to have a huge impact. You can do so from a local race. Why is it so important for local, like someone like yourself, a mom, who's, and in Danielle's case, a business owner as well, that just got frustrated with the way things are going and decided, I'm going to step up and actually try to change things. Why is it important for someone locally to seek an office?
It is so important. Listen, Danielle Jurinsky and your local school board, they have more effect on your children's lives and on your family's life than Jared Polis does. Or than Donald Trump does, sorry to say, but they do. So here's the thing. When we talk about local candidates getting elected, we're building our benches, so we're building strong conservatives who may potentially run for future offices. But it's so much bigger than that, right? Because let's take one bill as an example. Let's take House Bill 1039, non-legal name changes. That was Stephanie Vihill's atrocious pronoun bill. Okay, so Christy Davis, the chair of Moms for Liberty, and I, we went around the state and we said, look, there's a loophole in this bill. So you can ask for parental consent for a child to go by another name or pronoun other than the one which he was given at birth. So we were able to target conservative boards with good conservatives. But guess what? By and large, most of the boards across the state that had a conservative majority or were all conservatives, even they didn't want to pass this policy to protect their students. So we were grateful for the school districts that did, and we were able to isolate school districts across the state to protect those kids. Well, think about what a huge difference those school board members make to those families. That's a huge deal. And stuff like that comes up every couple weeks in our schools, our cities, and our counties. So we're not just talking about future leaders, we're also talking about what they can do to protect you from the legislature and Jared Polis.
Talking with Darcy Shannon. She's running for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Let's talk about one of the more controversial aspects of Dave Williams' leadership, which was endorsing in primaries. That hadn't happened previously under Republican Party leadership. Is that going to end under your leadership?
Yes. I've put out an amendment, the Darcy Amendment. It is primary neutrality. So that was definitely a policy that backfired. It didn't go well. I did lead the historic endorsement of President Trump. As you know, I think it was important to do so. Everybody knows why by now. But that said, endorsing down ballot, it did more harm than good. And we know that now. So as leaders, it's okay to say, look, we tried this. We perhaps executed it not as well as we could have, but also it didn't bring us together. It didn't help the candidates, let's be honest. So we as a party, as I told Kyle Clark, we as a party, what we need to do is put out accurate information about the candidates, show the voters how to get to that information, and trust that they'll make the best decisions so that we're not dividing people.
Billy and I discussed this, and to me, the survey wasn't a big problem. I didn't like the one question about AFP, right? I thought that was clearly a personal question from Dave, and I appreciate all the great work that AFP does. I didn't mind knowing where candidates stood on issues. I thought that was kind of helpful. Oh, what do you think about the sanctity life? Are you really pro-life? Because a lot of the times, if you're sitting there looking at primary candidates, you're like, digging through a website to try to figure this stuff out. That didn't bother me. I just didn't like the state party using its name and its resources to support particular candidates. And then obviously the AFP question I didn't like either. But I want to ask you about, in addition to that, I just lost my train of thought, Bill, on the question I was going to ask. Do you have a question?
That's not good. Yeah, I want to go further. I want to go further into the idea of with the primary neutrality. What lessons do you feel you learned personally on leadership based on what happened with the primary questionnaire, and then also with Dave Williams and the party endorsing candidates in the primary that in recent memory hadn't happened?
Well, I mean, like I just mentioned, I think that as it didn't play out well, right? We learned that, and that's an argument, and it's a hard pill to swallow that I've had to take out into the public, because there is a portion of the party, Bill, that is a little bit splintered off, and they're saying, well, we don't get the best candidates if we don't endorse. And by and large, that's just not true. We can get good candidates by recruiting good candidates and by helping good candidates and by putting the information out there to the voters without causing a massive schism in the party. But I think the most important lesson there is not about neutrality. It's not about any of the bylaws. It's that, again, sometimes as leaders, we may make a decision that we have to go back on. I hope that it doesn't happen often. All of us as leaders do, but it happens. And that is how I look at endorsing in the primaries. We got to go back.
Okay, let me follow up on that just for a second. And going a little bit wider, what I'm looking at, I'm going to ask you, you've been part of Dave Williams' administration in the Colorado GOP. Can you outline for our listeners what tactics, what steps you are going to take specifically that are different than Dave, or is it going to be a continuation of business as usual? Where I'm kind of going with this in a back end is, where do you think that Dave Williams made some missteps possibly you need to correct?
And can I get her to answer this after the break? We're up against a break here.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to get you to answer that question. And it was the right question that I was struggling with earlier to remember. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, where we're not paying attention to the clock. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Darcy Shanning's joining us. We've got about another minute and a half, and then she said she could stay over a little bit into the 9 o'clock hour because I want to talk on-the-ground logistics, right? What Scott Pressler did in Pennsylvania, day after day, registering people to vote, winning. I feel like that voter registration effort's been lost recently. Tell us how you plan to do that as chairwoman.
Sure. So this is all outlined on my website as well. Hispanic outreach, young voter outreach, Black outreach, LGBT outreach, right? So parades, churches. One of the big things that the Democrats are doing that we're not doing is going into high schools and talking to the 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And we're seeing that this generation of high school kids, right, they are tired of what's going on. They're like thirsty for normalcy and for God and family.
I love that. All right, we'll continue the conversation with Darcy Shanning. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Joining us in studio, Darcy Shanning. She's running for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. We had a breaking update come in from Brandy Bradley at the top of your interview, so I want to make sure we reserve enough time for you so you get the entire hour. Bill's point, where he asked what you're going to do differently than Dave Williams and, specifics that you're going to bring in. Let's go there.
Well, I mean, everything I've said during this hour and on every show and should tell you we're just not the same person. So it's easier to tell you how Dave and I are alike, which is in our values. But as far as how we execute things and how we manage the GOP, we're just totally different people. Like I said, I led the candidate initiative for the Colorado GOP last cycle because I saw a need for it. I was out curing ballots in Weld County, and people will tell you I am the only officer that they saw doing that. I'm boots on the ground, hardworking every single day. I was out in Durango a couple weeks ago fighting for our kids. So that's not a criticism of Dave. Dave is, focused on closing the primaries, which I also want to continue, but I'm just heavily focused on the work that it takes to flip the seats and raise the money to do so right now.
Let's talk fundraising. How much have you raised in your role, and what are your budget goals? What do you anticipate hitting fundraising-wise moving forward?
In my role, it's hard to say how much I've raised because I run Capital Club. So that's a lot of money that comes in every month or two. That's something that I've been running for over a year. And then I hold various fundraisers. I send emails out. So I've raised probably, over six figures. I would say double that for the Colorado GOP so far. And I've raised just as much in my Build Our Benches initiative. I want to have $2 million in the bank for school board elections. And when we go into 2026 with that confidence and that momentum, I want to have $3 to $4 million in the bank for state candidates.
Okay. So that would be a total goal of about $6 million, $5 to $6 million.
Yeah.
And what was Dave raising? Do you know?
I want to say it was about 2 to 3. Don't quote me on that though. But Dave has raised money to his credit. There's been a couple million that have come in under his tenure. So.
Okay. And do you think the donors are going to come back? I mean, and willing to engage at that level that you're hoping to get at? Do you feel like they left under Dave, or were they there?
No, I think donors in general have left. There's been some that have left, but listen, there's a lot that haven't left. I mean, as somebody that sees the donations coming in, sees the mail, sees the emails from the Anodot, there's new donors every day, and there's still a lot of large donors. So we're holding on to those people, but then there are some people that have left. I've met with some of them. I'm not going to name people by their names, but several huge donors have reached out to me, and they've said, look, I don't want to put my money into the Colorado GOP, but with you as chair, I will. And I know that they will because they've donated to my run as chair. I'm grateful for that I've got donors behind me even in this race. And if that doesn't show confidence, then I don't know what does.
Now, I want to follow up on that just for a second, Darcy. This is a personal thing. I'm not talking personal issue between, but I think that personally, when I see the lay of the land, one of the hurdles you're going to have to overcome is the same hurdle that Kamala had coming out of the Biden administration, talking about change and growth while being a part of the previous administration. That is a more difficult road to hoe based on just messaging. So what I want to ask you is, again, just laying the land as far as why I'm asking the question, is what do you think are the growth opportunities? What do you think are the places where the GOP can make inroads inside of Colorado that Dave Williams did not see, or maybe in someone else's interpretation, ignored? What are you going to be able to do that he didn't?
Well, like I said, all the things I've been doing. I led the historic endorsement of President Trump, as I mentioned several times. I led the candidate initiative for the Colorado GOP. I lead all the local policy writing, the directives that go out to the county commissions.
Let me interrupt just for that, though. But part of that was under Dave's purview.
I created created that.
Yeah, but
it
part
wasn't
of-
under Dave's purview.
but-
I created that position and I forged it out of the hard work that I'm already doing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but it was while under Dave's leadership, etc. And part of the issue with Dave was when he was coming in, it was we were moving KBB out, Christy Burton Brown, because we needed to give the party back to the grassroots. So what I'm trying to figure out is this line of delineation. Are we still continuing with the grassroots and we're continuing with the mechanisms in the previous administration, or is this a new, different administration? That's why I brought up the issue about Kamala Harris. It was a very difficult thing that she had to walk, and I think she failed at it. I'm not prejudging where you are in it, but I want to know, because those were things that you created, but it was under previous administration. So how is this different? Where are we going new? Is new needed, or is previous good?
Well, some of the previous work needs to be carried over. I mean, those things that I created, that office that was forged for me because of the work that I had been doing that really didn't fit into any particular role at the time, that work needs to continue. But guess what? So a lot of that work is what, in my mind, the chair needs to be doing. So I'm carrying that hard work and that boots on the ground mentality into the office of the chairman. And, you know, to that end, to compare Dave to Joe Biden, Joe Biden was a disastrous failure, and the last set of elections proved that. We can't attach.
I'm just doing it based on separation.
No,
from,
I get it, but we can't.
It's hard to get out of it's hard to sell the new and different direction when you're coming from the existing administration, regardless of that administration. Al Gore had the same thing under
Right.
Clinton, and Bush had the same thing coming out of Reagan.
But my point is, I don't have to sell it as hard because Dave wasn't a disaster like Joe Biden. He may do some things that you didn't agree with and some of us didn't agree with, and I may have a totally different management style than him, and I want a totally different Colorado GOP than Dave wanted. But to say that I have to 100% separate myself from Dave is just, I mean, that's more so rhetoric than anything else. I mean, the grassroots, by and large, their vote is the majority in the party right now. Their voices remain at the top of the list. But to say everybody's welcome in our party, everybody's welcome in the Colorado GOP.
Talking with Darcy Shannon. She's running for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. We have text messages here of people that want to donate to you.
Oh,
so where
great.
can they?
They can go to darcyforchair.com. Thank you guys so much. That means a lot to me. Darcy, DARCY, for FOR chair. So darcyforchair.com. Thank you.
You can also follow her on X at Darcy4CO. And I encourage everybody, go watch the discussion she had with Kyle Clark. It's where we started this conversation. I think you had the best response to Kyle Clark I've seen from a Republican in a long time, because you were so comfortable in your positions. You weren't willing to back down. I think he underestimated you. He was caught a little off guard on your ability to articulate and defend your position so well. And it was fun to watch.
Thank you. I had
Good
fun
job.
doing it. I love it.
We always like it when Kyle Clark gets a little heat. So well done, Darcy. Darcy Shannon joining us. Again, one more time, your website.
Darcyforchair.com. Darcy is spelled with DARCY and FOR is spelled out. Darcyforchair.com.
There you go. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show
thanks
today.
for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. I now want to get to Blake Olson in the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. 46 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 64 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Colorado's Brandy Bradley fighting hard for children who were rape victims in Colorado. She has an important child protection bill that needs to pass and is getting some support from Democrats.
Senator Mark Snyder in the Senate is on the bill with me. And so we just have to convince the judiciary, which is the kill committee, to put these people in jail and not let them plead down. And so far we're hearing that we don't think that it's due process for the criminal and things like that. So we're going to put them on the spot. If they don't want to put child rapists in jail, then we are going to make sure the Colorado knows.
The judiciary starts at 1:30 today. Bradley was on with Jeff and Billy last hour. And Darcy Shanning in the studio this morning. She says she's the best person to lead the GOP in Colorado, and others like Danielle Neuschwanger, even though she likes her as a person, are not prepared for the challenge.
We need doers. We can't just have people that pick up a microphone and say, here's what I want to do. I want to get Republicans elected. I want to fundraise. I want to flip the state, and I want unity. Those are the 4 things you hear. Okay, how are you going to do it, number one, and show me some ounce of proof that you know how to do it and that you've demonstrated that you're willing to do this work and that you do it year after year. And Danielle has not done that, nor have any of the other candidates in this race for Colorado GOP chair.
Last month's inflation report is better than expected. The consumer price index rose by 0.2% last month. The EU, i.e. globalist leftists, responding to 47 slapping tariffs on steel and aluminum. He's placing 25% tariffs on metals that come into the U.S. from any country in the world, including allies. Meanwhile, the EU will impose counter tariffs on the U.S. goods worth $28 billion. Retired Colonel Douglas McGregor, an incredible interview with Tucker last night on X. The southern border and Mexican cartels are worse than we can even imagine, if that's possible.
And I said, well, what's the problem with the legal ports of entry? Well, most of the drugs and a lot of the human trafficking comes through the legal ports. I said, well, how does that happen? They said, well, if somebody comes up to you and you make normally 3,000 or 4,000 a month, and they say, here's 20,000, let us through, you get through. And that's part of the problem on the border. So I said, well, what do you think needs to happen? And people told me privately, you need to get the U.S. Army on the border, bring back the regular Army, and then rotate them.
And the Army's not on the border.
No, they just sent a brigade, and that's fine. But we have, I think, 6 or 7 of these brigades of motorized infantry, these light armored vehicles. Put them on
the border. And he says this is what Americans care about, and we have to stop activity up and down the southern border. The pro-Hamas tool, taken into custody by ICE over the weekend, will appear in court this morning. Mahmoud Khalil, who helped lead protests at Columbia University, had his student visa revoked. His lawyers are challenging deportation orders from this administration, arguing he is here legally with a green card. Problem is, he helped wreak havoc on campus and broke numerous laws. Hello. Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin will visit the White House today. He said he hopes he and President Trump can talk about how to secure peace, whether in the Middle East or Ukraine. The winner of Greenland's parliamentary is the country's center-right party. He says they want to build a good foundation before becoming independent. UNC with a huge game coming up tonight. The Bears try to win the Big Sky tournament. If they do, they are headed to the NCAA tournament. Wow. A big one tonight at 9:30 against the Grizz from Montana. CU takes on West Virginia today at 1 o'clock. CSU in action tomorrow, and the Nuggets in action tonight against the T-Wolves. 43 in Brighton, 44 in Lakewood, 46 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I think Elon Musk is a rock star. The tofu crowd is mad, but, you know, when you trim fat, pigs squeal. That's just the way the world works. That's a law.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The spring-like weather continues here for another couple of days. Then as we get into Friday and the weekend, we'll have a bit of a change-up. Temperatures will be well into the 60s today and well into the 60s tomorrow. Lows tonight and lows tomorrow night in the 30s. We will see thickening and increasing clouds tomorrow night. Do be ready for a change. Friday and Saturday will be quite a bit colder. Highs will just be in the 40s. While we don't expect anything heavy, some rain and snow showers Friday into early Saturday possible. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
right, Bill. Speaking of battles taking place, a few of these here. I've got a poll up on X. Who do you support for Colorado GOP chair? If you go to x.com/Jeff Hunt, x.com/Jeff Hunt, you can see it there. Right now, Britta Horn winning 36.4 out of 165 votes. 36.4% going to Britta Horn. Darcy in second, 27.3. Richard Holtorf third, 21.8, and Lori Sane fourth, 14.5%. So you can weigh in. That'll be up for the next 24 hours. And we'll see if it reflects who's elected on March 29th is the date that they're choosing there. I'm not a part of the GOP establishment in the sense that I get to weigh in on that with a vote. It's just not me.
Yeah. They don't care if I vote, so I don't.
All right. So, Bill, another battle taking place. Republican refers to transgender member as a man, cutting short a House hearing. Listen to this audio. This was in Washington, D.C.
As the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply...
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
All right, so what happened there? A Republican lawmaker, this is from the New York Times, abruptly adjourned a congressional hearing on Tuesday after being challenged for referring to Representative Sarah McBride, a Democrat of Delaware and the first openly transgender lawmaker in Congress, as a man. The Europe Subcommittee on the House Foreign Affairs panel was in the middle of a hearing on arms control and U.S. assistance to Europe when its chairman, Representative Keith Self of Texas, introduced his colleague by calling her Mr. McBride. Ms. McBride, the New York Times says, who entered Congress knowing she would present a unique target for Republicans who have politicized and attacked transgender people, has generally chosen to let such moments slide. On Tuesday, she briefly registered her displeasure by returning Mr. Self's slight, responding, "Thank you, Madam Chair." Did you catch that? So McBride responds by saying, "Thank you, Madam Chair," before proceeding with her remarks. But Representative William Keating of Massachusetts, the ranking Democrat on the subcommittee, was not willing to move on. He interrupted the request that Mr. Self repeat his introduction, which he did, again referring to the Delaware Democrat as Mr. McBride. "Mr. Chairman, you are out of order," Mr. Keating fired back. "Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent." So here's my question. What is proper and decent when referring to somebody that's transgender? Bill, was he out of order? The chairman.
I wouldn't necessarily say out of order. He was rude. He was mean. He was belittling. And he did it to make a point. The cruelty was the point. The misidentification was the point. The lack of respect was the point. The calling them out and making an example and trying to shame them was the point. He was trying to be an asshat, and he was.
By referring to the representative as Mr. McBride.
Yes, because that representative is aware that Sarah comes forward and represents herself as a girl.
But she's not a woman. She's a man.
I don't think that we need to, at this point, do the biology and gender construct argument again. I don't think we need to. You're sitting there and you're going to hang your hat on biology. Yet she comes in and says that she is a woman. She presents herself as a woman, and she even honors the silly rules about bathrooms that they wanted to implement. Remember, before she ever did anything in Congress, they told her what bathroom she is going to use.
Right.
And she has
They're not gonna
honored
allow
that.
men in women's
She has
bathrooms.
110%. She's a woman. She has 110% followed that. Yes, she is. She's
No, she's
presenting.
not. She's
Yes,
a
she's
man.
identifying as a woman. Yes, she's. Transgenders have been around for thousands of years. It's almost the continuation of our society. We can have it in different societies. We don't have to talk about it right now. But the issue is not the respect to refer to her in her preferred gender or name, and that is disrespectful. Nothing is accomplished. Because here's the idea, just like you're pushing, she's a man. She's a man. Yes.
100%.
Yeah, I know. 100 in your mind,
Yes.
but what's the point of pointing that out? Why can't you refer to her as a woman? What woman? What is the problem?
Because she's
What?
not. Or
But-
he's not. He's not
no,
a woman.
she is. She is. She's presenting as a woman. She is presenting as a
man.
woman. No,
And so
gender-wise,
why-
she's presenting as a
why
woman.
Does everybody have to abide by it?
What do you mean?
I could maybe get there on the name issue. You're like, okay, name. But what they're asking Keith Self to do is buy into the delusion that he is a woman.
Why do you say it's a delusion?
Because he is a he.
No,
Bill,
no.
let me
She
ask you
presents
this.
herself as a woman, and she's coming in saying, "I am a woman."
She's
And
not.
then the one thing
He's
that you miss, yes, she is. And the one thing is, because we're not going to go through that gender construct thing again. Okay, we've done it. We've gone over that bridge a number of times. And I understand you disagree, but
Yes.
there are two differences. There's biological sex and there's gender, and there are gender norms, and that's fine. But if you listen to what she did, she didn't get offended. She moved on. I applaud the other representative.
He gave a little bit of a jab back.
No, not really. She just kept going.
No, didn't you hear that? He goes, Madam Chair.
But that's fine. That's
Right,
but
it's
again,
a little bit of a jab
Not
back.
necessarily. No, not the same. Not the same thing.
Refers
because
to Keith Self as Madam Chair?
Yeah,
Come
because
on,
if
that's a
you're,
jab.
but again, if you can turn around and just decide what the gender is, then why can't you? Then sure. But again, she wanted to continue and keep going forward. I applaud the other representative for standing up for her. It's ridiculous.
Bill,
because
if a white person says, I identify as black, do you have to
is race
treat them as
a social
black?
construct?
Yes.
No.
To 100%?
No.
Race is totally
No.
a social contract.
No.
It's a skin melatonin. The idea that
That's not a
people are
social
different,
construct.
the idea that people are different because of their race, or that you can identify by your race, is absolutely a social
No,
construct.
that's not a social construct. Social constructs
But
are how they are behaving.
Why can't
because a
somebody
social
identify
construct,
as black if they're white? Why can't they do that?
because that's not a social construct. That's genetic, and that's okay. And that's okay. That's fine. But the issue is, I mean, here, like on the show, you refer to me by my preferred name.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't
Why?
pretend you're a woman.
No, but why? Why do you give me the same respect that the other representative in Congress is not allowed? That's the issue. She's not allowed the respect to be referred to as her given gender and name. Yet you do it, and you give me that respect every single day because my birth
But
name
Bill,
is William.
If you asked me to identify you as a 6-year-old, I would say no.
That's different.
If you
different.
asked me to identify you
That's totally
by a
different.
different race, I'd say no.
That's totally
And if you asked
different.
me to identify you by a different gender, I'd say no too.
And that would
because
again,
there's an objective truth out there.
in biology as far as sex, but not as far as gender. Gender is a social construct, and we've gone through this over and over and over again. Yet you choose
Yes.
my preferred name.
Right.
We do it inside of our religion.
Because
we do it inside of.
there's an actual objective truth to that. Your
No.
name is Bill. You are a man.
No,
you
my name
are
is not.
in your 50s
No,
or William
my name.
or whatever
No,
it is. But
my
Bill's
given name.
short for that.
Hang on a sec.
It's not the same as changing somebody's gender.
My given name. What's on my birth certificate, which is what everybody shows, does not say Bill. Yet you use that every day.
Right.
Yeah. Again, and that's not difficult, and you do it out of a form of respect.
I
And
see.
that's the issue,
I don't
is
see
people
those
sit
the
there-
same at all.
Yeah, I know. You don't see it's respectful.
because
You don't want to
you're-
respect the other person's choices.
But-
This idea of liberty and freedom stops at the moment that someone decides they're going to be transgender.
Where was the anger on that?
Stops
Where
that.
was the anger on that in that in that engagement between Keith and Sarah McBride? It was from the left on that. Right? You want to talk about liberty and freedom and he got so angry. The other Democrat member got so angry because that's what you see. You see from the left this effort to control everybody's pronouns and
No, the
make
control-
everybody abide by it.
No,
You've got
the
to
control-
abide by the fact that this man thinks he's a woman, and if you don't, you're being rude.
No. The control is on the other side, that I'm going to refer to you based on this, and this is the construct I'm going to use. I'm not going to respect your choices. I'm not going to respect who you say you are. I'm not going to respect your individual freedom or liberty. I'm going to decide how far your individual freedom and liberty goes, because this goes into the idea when we talk about the groomers and the sexual assault and the idea on the children that does not happen at the same rate inside that community that it does with heterosexuals and everybody else. But that's the issue, that somehow they're grooming people. Sarah hasn't assaulted anybody, hasn't done anything
no one
wrong.
Said that
I know, but the
he's
assumption.
Done that?
Hang on a sec. She, again, but the idea being that that's the assumption. How many times have we heard from people on this show, both guests and callers, about those sick groomers? We've had that over and over and over again.
I think you're muddying the waters on this.
No, I don't think so at all.
The important thing is that
we hate trans. That's what we have to do. Yes.
The important thing is that we
them and make them feel bad.
We don't have to buy into and force other people to buy into what is clearly a wrong thinking.
All right, let's do it this way.
In this case,
okay, cool.
The wrong thinking is that you as a man can just one day become a woman. You can't do that.
Yeah, okay, let's go. Let's walk through it this way. What do you do with the Eskimos in Alaska? Because they've been referred to as Eskimos for years, but indigenously they call themselves Inuit people. But yet we call them Eskimos all the time. We don't honor how they refer to themselves. We don't honor their identity. We talk about them being Eskimos all the time. That's happened for generations in this country. We don't honor who they are. They refer to themselves as Inuit people. We don't talk about the Inuits. We talk about the Eskimos. We have Eskimo pies. Part of this has been going on for generations. We don't honor where people actually are. And that's the exact example here.
Honor where people actually are.
Yeah, who they are.
Where they actually are is a man.
No,
that
she's
is
a woman.
Who he actually is.
No. She presents herself and all the gender constructs based on what society says is a woman. She clicks all those boxes. That's fine. And she comes in and says,
he can dress up as a woman.
No.
But he's not a woman.
Yeah,
that's offensive to women.
No, it's not.
And the idea of what being a woman is. The idea you could just put it on. It's no different in my mind than putting on blackface.
No,
and then
that's
just claiming
totally different.
I'm all of a sudden black because I put on blackface.
That's completely
different. And identify as black.
That's completely different. Okay, how do you
how
feel?
Is that completely different?
How do you feel about adoption? It's completely different based on the intent based on blackface. Blackface was done it turned into a mockery and was done to be an insult.
So what if the intent is to actually be a black person?
I don't understand what you're
so
going with
you're saying the intent matters because it was meant to mock people. Okay, we'll take that out of it.
Is being a black person a social construct? And if so, how do you define it?
In some cases, a little bit.
How do you define it?
I think
please define it, because I can define feminine, I can define female as a social construct. How do you define black? Please define black as a social construct.
I think the idea of differences among races is a social construct that doesn't actually exist.
You're not defining it. Tell me what black is based on a social construct.
Yeah, I don't know. What I'm critiquing is the idea that races are different is a social construct. Not that the idea that there's a black identity.
Well, then you have to show me what they are, because we can show you the differences as far as a social construct between male and female, what roles they play in society. So show me the social construct of race if it's similar.
Well, the idea that there are different races. I think it's a social construct.
That's not a social construct. No, it isn't.
Sure.
No, not at all. So you're saying that just men and women biologically it's a social construct, then the biology. So your biology
there's a biological difference.
No, but is your biology then a social construct? Because if you're saying there are differences, if your flat example is there are differences in the races, so then it's a social construct. There are differences in biological sex, so thus according to you it's a social construct.
No.
So your biology is a social construct.
The
at that point.
idea that
you see how bad this argument is?
No. The idea
it's a bad argument.
Bill, the idea that we measure people differently by race is a social construct. I don't
understand what you mean by that.
So I don't think that there's any actual biological difference in races other than melatonin.
That would be a biological difference.
Then that's it.
But that's a biological difference.
Then that's it. Okay.
But not a social construct.
Correct.
Okay, so social construct of race is incorrect. That's fine. Now let's move on to something else. What about adoption?
But that's what I said originally.
No, you said that race is a social construct. You said that race is a social construct.
Yes,
you just said it isn't. You just said it isn't.
What?
Yes, you just said it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Yes,
no, it didn't.
You just did.
What
yes,
are you talking about?
You just said it isn't. Because you said the biology then would be a social construct because there's a biological difference between the races. And because of that, you said the race then is a social construct, which means that your biological difference is, as its face, a social construct. You've worked around in a circle. You started with biology. Yes, you did. You started off with biology being different between the two sexes, so obviously they have to be different. And then we went into race, and you said race is a social construct. So I asked you how races are different, and you said the biology. So now we're back at biology. So if, if the biological differences...
You're putting words in my mouth,
No, I'm
Bill.
not. I'm going right where you went.
Can I answer a question?
Please do.
Seriously? Because you want to tell me what I'm saying.
I'm listening to what you're saying.
No, you're not. You're interrupting
me. Yes, I am. Okay,
we need to go
ahead.
to a break. Go to a break. Jeff and Bill Show.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. We will get back to the discussion here in a second, but I want to take a moment to talk to you about an advertiser, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Yeah, this is a company that I'm excited to be associated with because they're changing how wounds are taken care of here in Colorado. I know you're like, but why does that matter? Here's the deal. Okay, my aunt developed a chronic cut on her leg. It just wasn't healing. She was going to a wound care facility and they were maintaining the wound, meaning it stayed open and they were cleaning it to make sure nothing got worse. Not get better, nothing got worse. While she was getting this treatment, she was exposed to MRSA. That created some adverse health effects that ended up with her being in the hospital for extended stays and even some accompanying amputations. That's what happened because they weren't trying to heal the cut. They were just trying to maintain the cut. That's why I want you to talk to Wound Care Associates of Colorado. If you or someone in your family or a friend circle is dealing with a slow healing cut, a diabetic ulcer, or a pressure sore, because ignoring the problem doesn't fix the problem. That continued torn open skin and tissue in my aunt was the perfect place for that MRSA to get access to her body. It's exactly what it did. And that can happen. So if you're dealing with a slow healing cut, that pressure sore, that diabetic ulcer, contact Wound Care Associates of Colorado because they are doing it differently here in Colorado. First of all, the treatment happens inside of your home. Their wound care certified nurse practitioner comes to your home on your schedule and treats you in the comfort, convenience, and privacy of where you live. Plus, you get a custom tailored treatment plan that is specific for your individual needs, not anybody else's. And because you're getting this personalized treatment at home, it reduces the risk of and complications, then promotes better healing because they're going to heal that wound, not just maintain it, which is what my aunt ran into problems with. So contact them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com for more information or to schedule your in-home visit today. If you or someone in your friend or family circle is dealing with that slow healing cut, diabetic ulcer, or pressure sore, ignoring the problem doesn't fix the problem. Fix the problem with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, and tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show and reach out to them because it helps us out. Thanks.
All right. It got spicy here,
Yes, it did.
and it did because this is a debated issue in our culture right now.
Yeah, and I also, in a moment here, I'm sorry, I did not mean to hurt your feelings or be mad and understand why I make them come off too, forceful in that last segment. And I apologize to you publicly for any ways that I could have hurt you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry
no,
about
I
that.
appreciate that.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Want to get to the crux of the issue. What is best when referring to somebody who is transgender? Okay? And what should you do? Billy's take that this person that was a man is now a woman, and it's respectful to identify that person as a woman. Here was an exchange in Congress yesterday about this, where the Republican refers to the congressman as Mr., even though he identifies as a woman.
As the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
sorry.
could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you
standard-
repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
So you can see passion in this debate, passion in Congress too, to the point where even they had to adjourn the meeting there. Okay, here's how I see it, and then Bill, I'll turn it over to you. When a transgender person asks you to identify them by a gender that is connected to sex that they are not, it is no different than a white person asking you to identify them as black, an old person asking you to identify them as young. We're not trying to be rude. It's not meant to shame. It's not meant to attack. There is objective truth, and you are asking somebody to recognize you as something or somebody that you are simply not. And the left then has put a tremendous amount of moral pressure on you, where you see that in that iteration, that example in Congress, where they're going to interrupt and shame you in order to embrace that. Or in the case of like John Caldera, lose your job at the Denver Post if you're not willing to embrace that. Bill, I'll turn it over to you for your perspective.
Yeah, this to me is about individual rights, liberty, and freedom. I don't think that the external society necessarily gets to define who you are and what you are. I don't think that's how we operate. Again, there are guardrails on that, and I understand. But this to me is about respect. Referring to someone as their chosen pronoun or name doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. And by someone's refusal, I see that as petty cruelty. I see that as a motivation to harm. I see that as trying to rub their face in it, especially the reference of the idea that I'm not going to participate in your delusion. And the example I would have that may be a little more operational for some of our audience is the idea of adoption. The idea of a kid that may have been born and mom abandoned the kid, left him at the adoption agency, dad's not involved, and eventually the child is adopted. And that child is going to take on a new name. And if the teacher turned to them and said, no, I'm not going to take on the new name, those aren't your parents. Those aren't your real biological parents. They aren't your parents. I'm not going to refer to them as such, and I'm not going to participate in your delusion of acting as if they are your parents. That's not your mom. That's not your dad. And I'm not going to refer to them as such. They are your adoptive parents, but I'm going to use that because that is the truth of the biology behind the matter, not the societal truth, not the truth of the child wanting to be part of that family, not the choice the child has made nor the family has made. And the other thing is this, the choice to call someone by their chosen name or pronoun harms no one. Harms no one other than asking you, the individual, to simply respect that person across from you. There is no direct harm to you yourself or that individual by referring to them as their name or their pronoun. But where the harm occurs is when the refusal takes place. That refusal creates harm. And so when you're choosing not to, understand you are choosing to harm the other person. And that's fair. Go ahead and do it, but don't pretend.
All right. Where do you fall along these lines? Obviously, I don't agree with that at all. And Bill and I are on different sides of this. It's an emotional topic. Phone calls open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. We'll get to your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Hang on. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Aaron, Denver. Good morning, Aaron. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, Jeff and Bill. I mean, hearing you guys go back and forth debate. I mean, it's good. It's good radio. But the thing is, what's the definition of a woman? I mean, does this guy, woman? I mean, does he or she have a fallopian tube? Does he or she have a vagina? So they just shoot a bunch of hormones in you, and next thing you know, you're in a cocoon, and then you transfer into a woman. I mean, what's going on, Jeff and Bill and Jeff?
Well, here, Aaron, what I'd talk to you about is that there's a difference between biological sex and gender constructs. And gender can be defined by society. And I would define a female biologically based on the chromosomes, but understand we have more than just XXXY. The International Olympic Committee tried to do DNA testing to determine sex a number of years ago, and because there are so many differentiations of our chromosome combinations, they failed at it. It didn't work. And so biological sex is one thing, and I acknowledge where Jeff is on biological sex, but gender and gender constructs are different. For me, a female is any individual that represents themselves based on how society has defined female. If we define female as, the long hair, wearing a dress, taking on the mannerisms of a girl, and presents themselves and refers to them as female, to me, that's good enough. That's female. And that definition of what a female is can be different in different societies.
And Aaron, I fundamentally disagree, and I think that is offensive to women because there's so much more and unique to being a woman than just putting on a dress and looking like a woman, and we should honor what God has created.
Yeah, see, that's the issue. Same with Bill. What about male, females in sports? What do you think about that?
The thing is, if it is a physical issue, I've been 100% consistent on this one. If it is a physical sport, you do not let transgendered men or women participate in that chosen sport. It's just not biologically. It's not consistent. So I also acknowledge that's not fair. And I'm fine with that, and I'm okay with that. The other thing, though, is if we talk about the things that make women special, etc., would childbearing and childbirth be part of that? Okay. Now, if so, then if a female that can't bear children, is she no longer female? If a woman goes through menopause and can no longer bear children, is she still female? Is someone that has their ovaries or fallopian tubes or even a entire hysterectomy removed, does that not make her female?
And I see a direct line from being willing to affirm that a man dressed as a woman is a woman to all the problems we've had with men and women's sports because we're not clear on this. Clarity is kindness. All right, Aaron, appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
Man, we had full phone lines on this one as we got to the end of the show. This is something you're not going to have in any other show in Colorado. So
you and I
thank
are going
you
to
to
have to hug this out
everybody.
and see if we can bring this back.
Right. We'll be okay. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.